Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this kind of content, consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps a lot, and it keeps these long stories going. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What time is it right now where you are, and which city are you listening from tonight? And if these stories help you sleep, feel free to tap the thanks button to support the channel. It truly means a lot. All right, let's get into it. I flick the overhead lights on as I roll out of the station, radio clipped to my shoulder. Unit 32, en route to 1042 Elmwood Lane for a domestic disturbance, I announce, glancing at the clock, 10:07 p.m. The dispatcher's calm voice confirms backup ETA 2 minutes. My hands tighten on the wheel. It's the kind of call that can go sideways in a heartbeat. I've answered dozens of these in 10 years, but tonight the tone in that woman's voice wasn't just panic, it was terror. The drive takes less than 2 miles, but it feels longer. My cruiser's siren is off. I don't want to spook whoever's inside more than necessary. Streetlights cast pale rectangles on the asphalt, and houses blur by, each one a potential scene of chaos. My mind cycles through procedure, approach, announce, contain, and wait for backup if necessary. But I also know that contain can mean the difference between a safe resolution and a tragedy. I pull up beside the curb in front of a 2-story frame house, white paint peeling at the corners. A single porch light flickers, casting long shadows across the cracked wooden steps. The blinds are drawn, but behind the slats I see movement, tiny shapes shifting. A television's glow leaks through the living room window, its volume low, but I hear a faint laugh track in the distance, a twisted lullaby against the palpable tension of the night. I kill the engine and step out, boots crunching on gravel. The air is still, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else. Spilled beer, maybe, or blood. I lift my hand to knock, but hesitate. In training, they teach you to hit twice and move on. But I hear something else now, the soft, terrified whimper of a child. I set my boot against the threshold and gently push the door open. Inside, the hallway is dimly lit by the flickering TV. Broken dishes litter the hardwood floor, shards glinting against the dull glow. I sweep the beam of my flashlight left and right. No sign of the suspect yet, but 2 pairs of small footprints lead down the hall toward the stairs. I clear my throat and call out, "Cedar Hills PD, anyone home?" My voice echoes, swallowed by the empty rooms. At the top of the stairs I pause. The house is unnaturally silent now, save for the low hum of electricity. The children's voices have stopped. My pulse tightens in my ears. I grip my flashlight and sidearm, ready to react. Every muscle is coiled. I can taste adrenaline on my tongue. Behind me, the radio crackles. 32? Suspect description? I answer. Unknown male, possibly white. Early 30s, sounds violent. I inch toward the master bedroom door. It's ajar, and inside I see the source of the children's sobs. A little girl curled in the corner, clutching her brother. They look up at me with wide, terrified eyes, faces streaked with tears. My heart twists. I crouch down, shining my light away so it doesn't blind them. "Hey there," I whisper. "It's Officer Miller. You're safe now. Can you tell me where your mom is?" Their brother, maybe 8 years old, points down the hall toward the bathroom. "She's in there," he says, voice trembling. I radio for backup again, this time explicitly requesting medical and crisis response, and move toward the bathroom door. The sound of muffled crying and a single harsh breath comes through the frame. I knock and call, "Ma'am, it's Officer Miller. Can you open up?" The lock rattles, but she doesn't answer. I pull my baton free and gently ram the door. It swings open to reveal a woman pressed against the far wall, arms wrapped around her midsection, eyes darting. Her blouse is torn and stained, and bruises bloom along her arms and neck. She clutches a half-empty bottle of prescription pills in one hand. Behind her, a shattered mirror and overturned vanity chair speak of a violent struggle. I holster my baton, switching to my calmest tone. "Mrs. Carter, I'm here to help. Let's get you out of here." She trembles, nods, and I guide her out into the hallway, where I crouch beside the children. I remove my gloves and place a reassuring hand on her shoulder. She leans into me, silent tears falling. The children huddle close, little hands clutching the hem of my uniform. Footsteps thunder on the porch behind me. Backup has arrived. I stand and draw my taser, cautious. Through the front window, I catch a glimpse of movement. A dark shape slipping past the side of the house. My radio erupts. "Unit 32 to dispatch. Suspect fleeing on foot, east side yard. Send units to intercept." I bolt after him, heart pounding, adrenaline ignited. Outside, the night air hits me like a wall. I race around to the side yard, flashlight swinging wildly. In the darkness, I see him crouched behind a bush, rain-slicked branches draping over his head. He springs up, eyes crazed, and I fire the taser. The probes sink into his jacket and he jerks violently before collapsing onto the wet grass. I kick him gently to confirm, no movement. I holster the taser and cuff him. He sputters, half awake, mumbling unintelligibly. I flip him onto his back and apply firm pressure to keep him subdued. My arms shake with aftershocks of adrenaline. Moments later, backup officers arrive and take him into custody. I step back, chest heaving, watching them haul him inside. I return to the porch where the family stands, children clinging to their mother. The little girl gazes up at me, eyes wide. I offer a timid smile, keeping my voice soft. "It's over now. He won't hurt you anymore." She nods, pressing her face against her mother's coat. The mother looks at me with exhaustion and relief mixing in her eyes. I radio dispatch. 32 to dispatch. Suspect in custody. Mother and children safe. Requesting medical to the scene and crisis team for family. The dispatcher's voice is calm, but I hear concern underneath. I lower my radio and lean against the porch rail, breathing hard. The house is still, as if holding its breath after the storm. I glance back at the living room window. The sitcom laugh track continues, eerily out of place. I shake my head, wondering how many nights it will ring in my ears. Then, I turn back to the family and prepare to guide them inside, to wait for paramedics and therapists, to carry this night's weight with me as long as I wear this badge. I step aside as the EMS crew unload their gurney, watching them move quickly but carefully through the shattered entryway. The mother, Mrs. Carter, has slumped to the floor against the wall, her head resting on her knees, tears still streaming. Her children sit beside her, wrapped in a thin emergency blanket, eyes wide and unblinking. One of the medics kneels beside them, gently checking vital signs. The other directs a partner to clear a space for treatment. I holster my taser and radio the scene. 32 to dispatch. Medical on scene, suspect in custody. I'm securing the house for evidence collection. Footsteps echo on the porch behind me. Officer Daniels and Officer Price arrive, squad lights painting the house in alternating red and blue. Daniels takes the suspect from my hands. Price moves past me into the living room, where he begins laying down crime scene tape. I nod to both, then turn back to the family. The mother raises her head, blood beneath her blouse visible where the fabric tore. She manages a small nod when she sees me. I crouch again, speaking softly. Ma'am, the paramedics will get you patched up. Do you want to come sit in the ambulance cab while they check you out? She hesitates, eyes flicking to her children, then bows her head and allows the medic to help her up. The kids cling to her legs for a moment before the blanket is wrapped around them too. I stand and move to the side yard, where Price is locking down the suspect's personal belongings: a torn jacket, an empty beer can, and a crumpled shirt with dark stains. I watch as Price glances back at me, concern in his eyes. He nods, and I radio 32 to dispatch. Evidence items collected, suspect match description, request K9 unit for scan of side yard. The faint click of cuffs releases the suspect from the metal bench at the bumper of my cruiser. He's slumped forward, face turned away, hair matted with rain. He's silent now, defeated. I approach, crouching to his level. "Carter residence," I say, more statement than question. He lifts his head slowly. His eyes, bloodshot and glazed, fix on me for a moment before they dart away. "Yeah," he croaks. "That's right." "Do you understand you're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon and child endangerment?" I ask, reading him his rights as Price stands behind me, ready to secure him for transport. The suspect nods once. His voice trembles. "I messed up." I stand and help Price lift him to his feet. The suspect's legs buckle slightly. Price steadies him. We guide him to the cruiser. He trails his hands along the side as if saying goodbye to the scene before we shove him into the back seat. Price closes the rear door with a definitive click. I walk back to the porch where the crisis response social worker has arrived. She kneels to speak with the children, checking their expressions, offering gentle words. I nod to her, then step back into the dark interior of the house for a final sweep. Inside, the beam of my flashlight illuminates chaos. Smashed picture frames on the floor, magazines scattered across the coffee table, spilled juice congealed on the carpet. I methodically work through each room, confirming no one else is hiding. In the master bedroom, I pause by the nightstand. A half-empty pill bottle tipped on its side. A child's drawing tucked under a book, showing stick figure parents and two smiling children holding hands. I pick up the drawing, noting how the crayon has smudged in a way that suggests someone clutched it tightly in fear. I pocket it as evidence. In the living room, the television still plays that same sitcom on a never-ending loop. The laugh track is almost comforting now, a reminder of normalcy in a house that felt like a war zone moments ago. I flip off the TV, plunging the room into darkness save for my flashlight. The sudden quiet is deafening. I exit through the back door to give the crime scene techs full access. Wet grass presses against my boots. Stars peek through broken clouds. I take a deep breath of cold night air, letting it clear my head. Nearby, the K9 unit arrives, and I watch as the dog's bright muzzle lantern swings as it sniffs along the perimeter. Police tape flaps in the breeze. My radio crackles. 32, do you copy? It's dispatch. Copy, I reply. Scene is secured. Evidence techs on site will update when clear. There's a pause, then acknowledged. ETA to drop suspect at Cedar Hills PD is 5 minutes. I nod, even though no one sees, and close my eyes for a moment. Nights like this, nights where you go into someone's home and see lives torn apart, linger in your mind. I open them, blinking against the floodlights the techs have set up, and head back inside to help place cones where needed, to mark stains and footprints, to catalog every detail before it's washed away by morning. Inside the kitchen, I stop by the sink. Fingerprints mar the stainless steel, and a single blood droplet darkens the rubber mat beneath the faucet. I kneel and swab the droplet, careful to preserve any DNA. My glove tastes salty where I accidentally grazed my palm. The tech notices, hovers in the doorway and nods. I stand, and he takes the swab. It's nearly midnight when I finally finish processing the scene. The last officer leaves, and I'm alone in the empty house. My footsteps echo as I walk back through the hallway. At the top of the stairs, I pause and listen. Nothing but my own breathing and the faint hum of the streetlight filtering through drawn curtains. I step onto the porch and close the door, locking it behind me. The screen door raps once against the frame. I take off my hat and wipe my brow, feeling the damp fabric stick to my hair. I glance up at the second-floor window where the children had cowered. It's dark now, shuttered against the world. I reach for my cruiser keys and fumble them loose, thinking of the detour to booking and the report I'll have to write before I can call it a night. My radio is silent. For a moment, I just stand there, letting the chill wrap around me. Then, as I slide into the driver's seat, my eye catches something on the porch floor. A small piece of folded paper wedged between the planks. I reach out and pick it up. Unfolding it reveals a hastily scribbled note in a child's scrawl. He watches us from the vent. My heart thumps hard in my chest. I glance up at the house, at the dark vent beside the bathroom window. What was that child trying to warn me about? I fold the scrap of paper slowly, careful not to tear the jagged edges, and let my flashlight beam dance across its surface again. The children's note, "He watches us from the vent," stares back at me in uneven letters, smudged at the edges like someone pressed too hard in panic. My stomach twists. I glance up at the bathroom vent beside the window. A metal grate painted the same dingy off-white as the wall, screws rusted at the corners. I slip my radio off my shoulder and press the note against it. "Dispatch," I say quietly. "This is Unit 32. I need a quiet perimeter check. There's a potential hidden threat inside 1042 Elmwood." No rush in my voice, but my heart hammers. "Copy that, Unit 32, units en route." I holster my taser and draw my Glock instead. The evening's earlier violence still rings in my ears, but this feels different, something more deliberate. I step through the front door, shutting it gently behind me, and lock it. The porch light flickers overhead, then steadies. I pat my vest pockets, extra magazines, flashlight, gloves. I take a deep breath, looking left at the side yard where Price is speaking with the canine handler, the dog sniffing at the foundation. "Hey," I call softly to Price, who turns. "I need to sweep the interior again. Something's off." He nods, sliding his hand to his own weapon, eyes flicking to the children's window. "Be careful," he murmurs. I duck back inside. The living room is dark, crime scene tape fluttering at the corners. The techs are packing up under the single spotlight over the coffee table. I step over scattered evidence markers and a digital camera flashing off. "Sorry," I whisper. The tech glances at me, nods. I make my way down the hallway toward the stairs, baton in one hand, Glock trained low. Halfway up, I pause at the master bedroom. The door is closed. Price had left it propped open earlier. I push it gently. Nothing inside but the overturned vanity and the pill bottle on the floor. I shine my light into the closet, empty except for a row of clothes and a small cardboard box. Inside the box, receipts for prescription meds, bank statements, and a folded photo of the suspect with the children. Unsettling. I photograph it with my phone. Better safe than sorry. Back in the hallway, I inhale. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant siren feels amplified. The upstairs hallway ends at the bathroom door. I lift my hand to knock, but hesitate. Instead, I slip on latex gloves and grip the door frame, listening. Nothing but the steady hum of the vent fan and my own ragged breath. I reach for the vent note again, setting it on top of the radiator cover. Then, with the butt of my taser, I press against one of the rusted screws. It turns with a dry squeak. The grate falls inward with a muffled clang. I hold my breath and shine the beam inside the duct. Darkness and ductwork stretching at least a dozen feet before curving out of sight. I squat on my haunches, resting the taser against my thigh, and peer in. At first, there's nothing. Just ribbed metal and a few dead wasps. Then, at the far end of the shaft, I catch a flicker. A small dark shape shifting against the far wall of the duct. I lean forward, heart clenched. The shape slides out of view. My training kicks in. Moving slowly, I shift my weight, taser ready to fire. Cedar Hills, PD, I say into the duct, voice low and steady. I know you're in there. Come out with your hands up. Silence. My stomach knots. Dispatch, this is Unit 32, possible additional suspect hiding in the vents. Requesting immediate backup to secure interior. The radio clicks with a terse acknowledgement. I set the taser on the floor and draw my flashlight, reaching into the shaft to prop the grate at an angle that catches light inside. The beam elbows through the vent, illuminating a narrow corridor of metal. I steel myself and slide my hand back to my Glock grip, then swing the beam slowly along the duct. Finally, I see him. A slender silhouette curled against the top of the duct, knees drawn to chin. His face is pale, eyes gleaming in the light, lips moving as if whispering to himself. Sweat beads on his forehead. I hold my breath, then speak. Look, I don't want to hurt you. Just come out and we'll get you some help. His head snaps up. He scrambles backward, kicking free from the duct and collapsing through the opening. He lands on the bathroom floor, gasping, knocking over a stack of towels. The sound is deafening in the quiet house. I point my flashlight and step backward, pulling my gun hand back. Get on your face, I shout. He hesitates, then lunges toward me, wild-eyed, desperate. I fire the taser reflexively. The probes hook into his shirt, sparks crackle and his body convulses. He collapses face first onto the tile. I rush forward, flip him onto his back, cuffing him before he can lurch up again. His chest heaves, his eyes, wide with fear, meet mine. Sirens burst outside as backup floods the yard. I grab the note from the radiator cover and shove it into evidence bag. Then I check the suspect's pulse, weak but steady. I gingerly guide him upright and call out for medics. 2 officers come up the stairs, weapons holstered at the ready. They help me secure him and escort him downstairs. Passing the children's room door, I catch their eyes peeking through a crack in the frame. I offer a reassuring nod, half comfort, half apology for dragging them back into terror. The mother stands just outside, wrapped in a blanket, eyes red but blazing with relief. We exchange a glance. I'm sorry this happened, and I'm glad you're safe. Outside, the second suspect is lifted into custody. They're nearly identical in age and build to the first, like twins but strangers. The detective on scene notes the resemblance and radios to family services to see if this man had any relation to the household. I watch the pair loaded into separate cruisers. The first suspect, the husband, is silent. The second, splattered with dust and sweat, just whispers, "I told him to make them disappear." I feel bile rise in my throat. Back inside, the techs dust the vent shaft for prints and dust for DNA. A tiny scrap of fabric, thread from the man's shirt, gets lifted for analysis. I step out onto the porch, waiting as Karen, our social worker, kneels to comfort the children before they're taken to a safe room. Night wind stirs the tape across the doorway. I lean against the cruiser, watching the dawn lightening sky. My radio buzzes with routine calls. Accidents, noise complaints. But my world has narrowed to the family's house, and the 2 men now linked to it. I haven't slept yet. My skin is crawling. I replay the scuffle in my mind, that frantic scramble in the vent, the way his eyes looked, like he'd been hiding there for hours, waiting. Was he an accomplice? A copycat? A stranger drawn by violence? As backup clears the scene and the last evidence bag is sealed, I walk back up the porch steps. The door to the house stands open once more, revealing the cratered living room. A small footprint on the scratched floorboards, easily overlooked. A child's shoe print, though neither child has shoes on now. I crouch to examine it, size 3, matching the little girl's feet. Did she chase him? Did she try to help? I rise and close the door, locking it firmly. The click echoes. I glance back at the windows, dark and unwelcoming, wondering what other secrets that house still holds. As I slide into my cruiser and start the engine, I can't shake the image of that second man in the vent, watching, waiting. I radio the precinct. Unit 32, I'm en route back. Prepare interview room for 2 suspects and get CPS on standby. I drive away, siren off, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn haze. My reflection in the rearview mirror is pale and drawn. Whatever tangled web this family was caught in, we're only halfway unraveling it. I turn onto Main Street, then pause at the intersection. For a moment, the street is silent, save for the distant bark of a dog. I reach into my pocket and pull out the note again, staring at the jagged handwriting. He watches us from the vent. Who else was watching them all along? I ease the cruiser to a stop in the booking bay of Cedar Hills PD. Sirens off, but lights still casting that alternating red-blue glow across the pavement. The 2 suspects, one in the back of my car, one hauled in by Officer Price, sit in separate squads now. I kill the engine and step out, stretching muscles that have been locked in tension for hours. My radio crackles with the routine patrol query, but I switch it to silent. Everything essential has already been said. Suspects in custody, scene secured, medical and crisis teams handled. Inside, the processing area smells of antiseptic and stale coffee. Booking clerks move quickly, stamping forms, scanning IDs. I follow Price into the evidence room, where an evidence technician waits by the secure locker. The photo of the children's drawing, the scrap of paper with the vent warning, the blood-stained shirt, all tagged, logged, sealed. I watch as they slide each item behind the glass door, the locks clicking shut. Evidence seems final. Lives themselves are still fragile and unresolved. I glance down at the note again. He watches us from the vent. My gut clenches. That phrase has haunted me from the moment I read it under the dim glow of the cruiser's dome light. Not just words, but a plea. A witness statement from the smallest occupant of the Carter household. Something adults overlooked until now. I wipe my palm on my trousers. It's not sweat. It's that familiar adrenaline-tinged itch that means there's more. Something slipped through our net. Detective Harris appears beside me, tall and precise. He's got that keen-eyed gaze, the one that zeroes in on inconsistencies. He flips open his notebook. Mitchell, you want to brief me? This case is headed to the DA, but something tells me you're not done. His tone is low, respectful. I nod, snapping the lid of the evidence bag shut. I want to know who that second guy is and why he was hiding so long. If he had access to those vents, he could have been watching that family for weeks. Harris folds his arms. Agreed. We'll get CPS to check the kid's school for any signs of prior visits, and I'll run his prints through the system. But beyond that, we need to go back to the house. He leans in. You want to do that now? I hesitate. It's past 2 a.m., and the precinct is nearly deserted. Even the lights in the squad room flicker as if they're ready to shut off, but leaving the Carter house uninvestigated until daylight feels wrong. "I'll take one cruiser," I say. "Let's get back. I want to check every inch of that ductwork and see if there are any other points of entry. Maybe cameras, maybe notes." Harris nods and keys up the cruiser. The drive back is silent except for the hum of tires on asphalt. Even Main Street, usually humming with night owl traffic, is deserted. I watch the darkened storefront slip past, neon signs faded, and my reflection stares at me in the glass. I wonder how many other families in Cedar Hills are keeping secrets behind closed doors. Cedar Hills, quiet, ordinary, full of people who never expect me to show up at their front porch at midnight. Until I do. At Elmwood Lane, I kill the engine and step out into a breeze that chills through my uniform. The house stands quiet now, crime scene tape fluttering at the porch. The K9 unit has already finished its inspection. The dog lies panting in the back of its handler's vehicle. Harris and I approach, flashlights raised. The porch light still works, casting a single cone of yellow across the faded welcome mat. I pick up a corner of the tape and duck under. Inside, the living room is almost serene. The TV has been unplugged, its screen dark. The overturned coffee table remains an evidence marker. I kneel to inspect a small footprint near the edge of the rug. Standard issue sneaker, adult male size. But I also notice faint scuff marks leading to the side door hinge. Someone must have slipped in or out quickly, maybe even after we left. I trace the marks with my gloved finger. They lead toward the kitchen. We move through each room systematically. In the kitchen, Harris shines his light on splintered cabinet edges, and behind the trash can he pulls out a crumpled fast food wrapper from the previous evening, a clue that someone lingered here after dinner. I step to the side and examine the windowsill above the sink, where I find a faint fingerprint smudge on the glass. Not a full print, but enough to test. "We need to get these to the lab for enhancement," I say. In the hallway, I pause at the bedroom door. I push it open and step inside. The suspect's duffel bag sits by the closet, zip half open. I unzip it fully and find more pills, prescription, not his own, and a small digital voice recorder. I slide it into an evidence bag. Inside, its memory could be more than just screams. Maybe confessions, incriminating statements, names. This house has a memory itself, and we're only starting to listen. Harris checks the closet. Empty, but for that cardboard box of statements. He pulls another item, a stack of letters written in a woman's script, sealed in yellowed envelopes addressed simply, "To anyone who listens." He hands them to me. We exchange a glance. These are letters of desperation, perhaps from Mrs. Carter or an earlier occupant. "We need to read these," I say. They could explain why the husband snapped, or who he was angry at. Harris tucks the envelopes into his coat. Back in the living room, we pause. The house feels different in the early morning hours, less charged, more hollow. The walls, once stained with anger and fear, now absorbed and cooled. I run my hand along the banister, feeling the chipped paint and grooves worn by countless hands. I wonder how many times Mrs. Carter leaned there, crying or praying for help. As dawn edges the sky with pale light, we step outside again. The breeze has dropped. The street is still. We stand on the porch, looking back at the dark windows. "Anything else?" Harris asks. I reach into my pocket and pull out the detention slip for the second suspect, the one from the vent. His mugshot is still fresh in my mind. Wild eyes set in a gaunt face, sweat and fear etched on his brow. I crunch the paper in my fist. "Just one thing," I say. I want to ask him why he said, "make them disappear." Then I want to know who else he might have told that to. We climb into the cruiser, doors thudding shut. I fire up the engine and back down the driveway, careful to avoid the evidence markers. As we turn onto Elmwood Lane, I look to my right, the children's window now shuttered at dawn. A wisp of curtain moves as if someone is watching us leave. My pulse jumps. I nod to Harris, who glances over. "You see that?" he says quietly. I shake my head, grim. "Let's just go back. I don't want to miss anything." By the time we reach the precinct, the sky's fully light. I park, kill the engine, and sit for a moment, fingers tapping the steering wheel. Today, I'll run the letters through handwriting analysis. Interview the suspects again. Separately this time, press them on every detail. Tonight's confinement wasn't enough. This house had echoes. I need to know whose voice is still hiding in its walls. I grab my badge and step out into the twilight. The station doors swing open, and I walk inside, boots echoing against the tile floor. The detective sergeant nods at me from his desk. "Ready for round 2?" he asks. I drop the detention slip on his blotter. "More than ever," I say. "Because whatever happened here, I'm not leaving until I'm certain that family is truly safe." I head toward the interview rooms, adjusting my uniform, steeling my voice. Outside, the morning news truck arrives, reporters eager for the latest on the Carter case. I straighten my posture, preparing to face the lens and the questions. But first, I'll get telltale details from those 2 suspects, pry loose every hidden clue, dredge up every secret that house had buried in its vents. Because until I know exactly what they planned and who else was involved, no amount of paperwork will keep that house from breathing danger into the next unwitting victims. And that is one promise I refuse to break. I settle into the harsh fluorescence of the interrogation room. The second suspect across from me at the metal table. He's gaunt now, pale from the fluorescent glare, hands cuffed in front of him. His breathing is shallow, ragged, like he's still half expecting another shock from that vent scuffle. I rest my forearms on the tabletop, lean forward, and meet his eyes. "The note said you were watching them from the vent," I begin, voice calm but firm. "Why were you in the vents and for how long?" He blinks, jaw working, his lips part, eyes flicker toward the steel door. I wait. Finally, he exhales. I used to work here." The words tumble out. "Maintenance crew. They called me in for late-night leak repair back before they had kids." I file that away. "When did you last have access to the vents after that?" He shrugs, uneasy. "Years ago, I didn't want the job anymore, but I heard I just needed to see." His voice trails off. I press. "See what?" The corner of his mouth twitches. "Whether they ever left." Across the room, Detective Harris shifts in his chair, pen poised over his notebook. "Explain," he prompts. The suspect's gaze drifts to me. "They said it was just a normal house. Perfect mother, perfect kids, but life isn't perfect." He swallows. "I wanted to know what happened on nights like that, the ones they never called about." I feel a chill. "You're telling me you used your old maintenance key to sneak in and spy on them?" He nods slowly. "I got curious. Over weeks, I'd slip in, watch their routines. The arguments, the quiet moments, anything." He threads his fingers together. "I saw him come home drunk first time last summer. Saw him hit her." His voice catches. "I tried to warn her, left notes, but she threw them away." I glance to Harris. "What notes?" Harris leans in. "Can you describe them?" The suspect's eyes cloud. I'd slip them under the door. "He's coming home angry. Lock the vent door." Stuff like that. He shrugs again. "She never believed me. Said I was obsessive." My mind races. The broken TV, the bruise patterns, the overturned furniture. echoes of a pattern he'd watched unfold. Then, the night of the 911 call, I continue, you didn't warn them. You hid until it got worse. He shrugs, eyes hollow. I was scared, didn't want to be caught. You know what they do to people who spy. I realized the stakes were higher than I thought. My taser, my Glock, the procedural calm, it had all masked an undercurrent of human fear and morbid curiosity. You didn't just watch, I say quietly. You helped cover it up. He shakes his head. Number I tried to stop it. He bites his lip. I pulled the fire alarm in the vent shaft earlier that night. I thought the noise might distract him, but I didn't think it through. Harris scribbles in his notebook. I lean back, arms folded. So you sabotaged the vent fan to lure him into the shaft. The suspect crosses his wrists, resigned. I thought if he came down here to check, I could tackle him. Didn't want the kids hurt anymore. His eyes glaze. Then you tasered me, officer. I nod, swallowing. You interfered with the police investigation, I remind him. That's obstruction of justice. The suspect's gaze drops to the table. I'd do it again, he whispers. He was going to kill them. I exhale, rubbing my forehead. I glance at the clock, a line of orange digits blinking 4:27. Dawn is breaking soon. There's a thin sliver of light seeping through the blinds, painting stripes across the suspect's face. I feel the weight of my badge, the responsibility to protect, and the crushing realization that sometimes interference comes from unexpected places. I stand and collect the note I taped to the file. He watches us from the vent. I fold it once, twice, and slide it back into the evidence envelope. I look down at the suspect. I'll need you to write a full statement about every time you entered that house, and you'll testify about it in court. His eyes flick to mine, pleading. Please, he says, just keep them safe. I hesitate. I'll do my best, I promise. As I turn to leave, Harris calls out, Miller, one more thing. I pause at the door. He holds up a small, crumpled photograph, one of the envelopes we pulled from the closet. It's the only family portrait the couple ever took, before the violence, before the kids. He sets it on the table. She wrote to you. He nods at the suspect. In one of these letters, she mentioned someone else was living with them, someone they never told you about. I lean back, heart pounding. Someone else? Harris's pen hovers. The suspect's lips twitch in a half smile. I think you'll find the truth between those pages, he says. I slip the photo into my coat pocket and step out into the hall. The precinct is waking. Officers at their desks, the hum of printers. I head back to the evidence room, letters in hand. As I unlock the door, my radio crackles to life with a new call, a trespasser at a daycare, screaming for help. I pause, letters clutched to my chest. Domestic disturbances never stop, they just change shapes. I look down at that faded family photo, the children's smiling faces frozen in happier times. I tuck the photo into my pocket. Detective, I say without turning, get CPS on standby. These letters need to be delivered today. He nods. Outside the window, the sun finally breaks the horizon. I step into the corridor, uniform stiff, heart heavier. I know the truth that letter holds could shatter everything the Carter family believed, or expose an even darker secret. I pocket my radio, fingers brushing the outline of the note once more. There is one question echoing in my mind as I walk toward the next call. How many more rooms in that house held secrets darker than the ones we've uncovered? Dispatch, Unit 23, domestic disturbance call. Location, 45, Willow Lane, Brookfield. Caller reports yelling and sound of children crying. Suspect possibly armed. Proceed with caution. Over. Unit 23. Copy that, dispatch. En route. Martinez. Out. I engaged the siren briefly, enough to warn neighbors without turning the whole block into a carnival. Through the windshield, the streetlights flicker against slick pavement, and I spot 45 Willow Lane halfway down the cul-de-sac. A single lamppost straight out front throws a sickly yellow pool of light across the cracked driveway. At the edge of that light, a red minivan idles, engine ticking. No one behind the wheel, no headlights, no brake lights, just the muffled hum of engine cooling in the autumn chill. I slide out of the cruiser, chest tight. Badge, clipped to my vest, pulses against my sternum like a heartbeat I can't control. The air tastes of damp leaves and gasoline. The radio crackles in my ear. Dispatch, you have Unit 23 on scene. Door appears closed. No visible activity, no traffic, over. I approach the front porch, hand resting on the grip of my service pistol, humbly holstered but within reach. 1 foot on the bottom step, I lift my flashlight. The beam cuts through the murk, landing on a shattered flower pot and muddy boots tracks. Small footprints leading from the walkway to the front door. Odd, leaves scatter over the concrete. But there, the prints are crisp, as if the earth itself remembered every step. I knock. Brookfield PD. Anyone home? We received a 911 call about a disturbance. Please open up. My voice carries through the door, a mixture of authority and caution. Silence. Then, muffled sobs, barely audible. They sound young. A child's cry. My breath catches. I try the knob, locked. I radio in. Dispatch, Unit to 23. Door is locked from the inside. Suggest a code 4, forced entry if warranted. Over. Through the door, the crying intensifies, then cuts off abruptly, like a faucet turned off. I flash my light at the small window beside the door. A curtain sways, though no breeze stirs. The glass is smeared, as though someone pressed their palm flat against it and slid down the pane. Please open up, I repeat, louder. Police, stand back from the door or we'll have to force entry. Still no answer. The porch light sputters and dies. The world flips from safety to something darker in an instant. I reset my grip, raise my voice. This is your final warning. Open the door now. Behind me, the radio hums. Unit 23, stand by. Back up en route. I take a deep breath, place my shoulder against the door, and kick. The wood cracks, gives, splinters, and I'm through. Inside, the foyer lights hang broken, wires sparking like dying fireflies. A coffee table lies inverted in the corner, legs snapped. A framed family photo smashed. 3 smiling faces, now shattered glass across a blood-dark carpet. My stomach twists. The mother, the father, a little girl. The picture is warm, bright, until now. Get a medic here, I called over my shoulder. Possible child endangerment. Need EMS and another unit. My radio confirms. Copy, Unit 23. Medic and Unit 24 in transit. Over. I sweep the beam down the hallway. The smell hits me then, a metallic tang mixed with damp blankets. A single staircase leads up. The crying echoes from somewhere above. I approach the hallway door. The knob is hot to the touch. Someone was gripping it hard, coming and going. I draw my sidearm, finger resting outside the trigger guard, muzzle angled down. Brookfield PD. If you're up here, show yourself. I don't want to hurt anyone. My voice cracks, betraying the adrenaline in my veins. A door at the end of the hall creaks open. A man appears, shirt torn, knuckles bruised, eyes wide with something I can't name. In one hand, he clutches a blood-stained wrench. He takes a step toward me, then halts, confusion scrambling his face. Put it down, I say, slowly. Step back, hands visible. He trembles, his breathing ragged. I heard. His voice is raw. He looks past me to the stairs. She's gone upstairs. He jerks the wrench toward the landing. My wife, she... I nod. Everyone okay? Where are the children? His eyes flick to the stairwell. Through the dim light, I see two small figures pressed against the railing. A 9-year-old boy clutching his sister's hand. Their faces are pale, eyes huge. Behind them, the hallway light reveals a long smear across the carpet, something dark, crimson. I walk to the stairs, holstered weapon aimed at the man but low enough not to frighten the kids more. Hey, buddy, it's okay, I tell the boy. Your sister's safe. We're here to help. He nods, does not speak. The girl clutches a doll with missing limbs. I swallow the lump in my throat. Where did she go? I ask the man. His head dips. The master bedroom, he whispers. I glance at his torn shirt, deep red stain over his left shoulder. Did you call 911? He nods, tears welling. I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. She cut herself. Then she chased the kids. I locked the door. I thought I could hold her. Holding her here was the right call, I assure him. But you need to let me get them to safety. I crouch before the children. Okay, I need you both to stay with me right here. The boy nods again. The girl squeezes his hand. I place a firm hand on each shoulder, guiding them down a half step so I can see behind me. Show me where she went, I say, rising and moving up the stairs. My partner's cruiser pulls in behind mine. Headlights cut sharp lines through the hallway window. In the distance, I hear sirens and see the red glow wash over the hallway walls through the front door window. Upstairs, the temperature drops. A cold draft brushes past my ear. I follow the man to his bedroom door. It's ajar, a thin crack of gray inside. I push it slowly. The room is dark, except for moonlight pooling on the hardwood floor. Pink walls, scattered toys, a floral comforter cast off to one side. And there, in the center, is her, face down, legs bent at an unnatural angle. Blood trickling from a slash across her forearm, pooling on the floor. My breath catches. I kick the door farther open, flashlight and taser drawn. Ma'am, police, talk to me. Are you hurt? No response. I set down the taser and reach for my medical kit. The man bursts into the room behind me, dropping the wrench. I tell him, get out, but he holds his ground, staring. I put a hand on his chest. Sir, please, back away. His eyes are red, wild. My radio chirps. Unit 24 on scene. EMS arriving. Almost immediately, I hear steps behind me. Officer Kim appears in the doorway, ducking as she enters. She kneels beside the woman. I've got vitals, weak but breathing. She glances at me. Looks like superficial, but deep enough to need sutures. I nod, exhale slowly. Good work. I turn back to the man. Sir, you understand why I had to force entry. We needed to secure your family. She's our priority now. Tears stream down his face. He collapses onto the bed frame, head in his hands. The kids peek in at us, eyes glistening. I guide them out. Officer Kim stays with the patient. I clear the room. Evidence bags, gloved hands, photographs of the scene, every detail documented. Dispatch updates. Unit 23, continue to secure the scene. Detectives en route. Over. I walk downstairs. In the living room by the front window, I find my flashlight beam picks up a small locket on the coffee table. Inside, a photo of two children on the beach. Sunlight, smiles, innocence. I pocket it. Outside, CHP and Brookfield detectives pull up. Neighbors gather across the street, craning their necks. Whispers thicken the cool night air. I catch a whiff of something sickly sweet, lilies, her favorite flower. I look back at the porch where a single lily bulb lies broken, petals scattered like the fragments of their lives. My radio crackles again. Unit 23, are you copying? Over, I answer. Copy, dispatch. Scene under control. Will remain until clear. Over. As I lean against my cruiser, lights strobed all around. I think of that family photo in my pocket. That moment before chaos, smiles unconditional. I close my eyes, heart hammering. In the back room, I can still hear the mother's labored breaths, the kids' soft sobs. I know tomorrow I'll replay every detail, every hurried step, every command I shouted, every second I feared I was too late. But for tonight, I'm needed here. I flick my flashlight on, step onto the porch, and survey the broken pot, the scattered petals, the empty van idling. I inhale the autumn air, taste the night. Then I push open the cruiser door, preparing for what comes next. Another call, another family in crisis. Because once you knock on that door, you never know what waits on the other side. I slide into the passenger seat of my cruiser and close my eyes for a moment, leaning my head back against the headrest. The red and blue strobes outside pulse against the window, painting the dark cab in frenetic flashes. My chest still feels tight, like I've been running uphill for miles. Behind me, dispatch crackles. Unit 23, status? Over. I clear my throat. Unit 23, on scene, securing children, coordinating EMS and detectives. I'll update when able. Over. I glance at the dashboard clock. 1:14 a.m. Hours ago, I'd been answering routine noise complaints. Now I've cataloged shattered photographs, witnessed a mother collapse in her own blood, and corralled 2 terrified kids into the hallway. The night still holds its breath. Lieutenant Harris pulls up in a black Tahoe. He kills his engine, steps out, and nods to me without words. When he reaches my window, I lower the glass. "How's it look?" he asks, voice low. Mother stable, airlift to Cedar Grove General. Kids under protective custody but unharmed. Father cooperating. Detectives canvassing upstairs, found possible self-harm. We recovered personal locket, evidence bagged, scene mostly clear. I pause, shrugging. Still unsettled. Harris rubs his forehead. "Good work. You sure you don't need a break?" He sounds tired. I don't, not yet. "I'm fine, I'll ride it out." He studies me, then pats the roof. "Make sure you log everything, statements from father and children. CPS on standby. We'll need you back at HQ for follow-up. Get some coffee before then. Lieutenant out." I close the window as he walks away and lift my door. The chill night air rushes in. I step out and head toward the front porch. The flower pot still lies shattered where I forced entry. Petals slip across the concrete into the grass. I pick up a single petal, white with blood-tinted edges, and let it fall. Then I push through the threshold again. Inside, the cops are methodically working. Officer Kim finishes bandaging a small cut on the boy's forehead as he sits in a corner blanket. The girl grips a stuffed rabbit handed to her by a social worker. The father stands near the staircase, hands clenched at his sides. I catch his eye and nod. He looks as though he hasn't slept in days. I move to the kitchen, where the coroner's assistant snaps photos of the bloodstain. I crouch beside him. "Make sure you get the skull pattern on the linoleum," I say softly. "That smear stops right at the cabinet line, could indicate placement." He adjusts his camera without a word. I stand, brush dust off my pants, and head for the hallway. CPS workers have begun lightly questioning the children here, keeping Mother's bedroom door closed behind a privacy screen. My radio hisses, "Unit 23, State PD detectives en route ETA 5 minutes. I exhale. Even with everyone here, I can still feel that cold crawl in the air, like something's watching. I follow my boots' echo down the hall to the living room. The clock on the mantel still ticks. chiming every 15 minutes oblivious. I've always hated those old wind-up clocks. Too loud, too relentless. I sink into the armchair facing the shattered photo. It's crooked on its stand. I push it level. It's the only thing here that seems natural among the wreckage of this family's life. 3 faces frozen in happier times. Smiling mother, proud father, giggling daughter. Now shards of glass lie beside the frame. I reach into my pocket and withdraw the locket from evidence. 2 tiny photographs, one of each child at Halloween. I used gloves when I took it, but now I hold it carefully between thumb and forefinger, testing the hinge. It opens with a click, a gentle reminder that memories can be carried close to the heart. I slide it back in my pocket. The front door creaks and the detectives arrive. Detective Ruiz and Detective Zhao, both wearing gray slacks and pressed shirts. They don't salute or announce, they simply move in, eyes sweeping every corner. Ruiz approaches me. "Lieutenant said you handled it?" he asks. I forced entry at 0134. Witnessed adult female self-harm, possible domestic violence context, children present. Father held tool but complied. EMS transported her to trauma. Evidence secured. I recite the details like a script. Scene log started. Photos and statements pending. Ruiz nods, then lingers beside the couch. He crouches to examine a dark smear on the armrest. Too small to be blood. Maybe coffee or spill. He swabs it with a Q-tip. Standard, I'll note it. He stands. Zhao moves toward the hallway. "Where's the weapon?" he asks me. I point upstairs. Wrench in master bedroom near doorframe. I preserved it under a yellow marker. He nods and radios for tech. I watch them file past, then back to me. Ruiz glances at the privacy screen. "Anything else we should know before we talk to them?" I hesitate. There was something. The father had told me he'd heard footsteps in the basement days before. Voices he thought were children's laughter, though no children lived there. He'd dismissed it at the time. Then, the night she snapped, he said he saw her scribble in the basement gloom. Messages on the walls he couldn't read. It sounded like mental illness, but the image stuck in my head. Words carved into drywall bleeding dust. Secrets etched beneath the kitchen. I didn't mention it, unsure. Now, standing in this empty living room, I decide to. "Detectives, basement," I say, lowering my voice. Before the incident, Father reported hearing laughter and finding walls scrawled with words. Indecipherable, half erased. He didn't go public. I think he was ashamed. If you check it, record any inscriptions. Could be crucial for understanding motive or mental state. Ruiz and Zhao exchange a look. "Good catch," Zhao says. "We'll inspect." They head toward the hall. I follow at a distance. At the stair landing, I pause. The staircase carpet is stained with muddy footprints. Not just from the father, but from 2 small souls. The children had been here. I run my hand along the banister. Cold, rough. Upstairs, a hatch leads to the attic. Down the steps, a doorway leads to the dark basement. I step through the archway into the kitchen and inspect the trapdoor. It is sealed with a heavy latch. I lift it. Spring hinges howl in protest. For a moment, I feel foolish, chasing phantoms in a domestic violence call. But then the smell hits. Damp, musty, like old paper and mildew. My eyes adjust to the gloom. The basement light is a single bulb that flickers overhead. The beam of my flashlight sweeps the room. Broken toys, a decommissioned crib, water-stained boxes stacked in one corner. My boots stir dust motes that float like ghosts in the air. Then I see them, red scrawls on the drywall. I step closer. The words are jagged. "Mama," I hear her in the walls. "Don't let her watch me sleep." Her voice is my lullaby. My throat tightens. I know CPS will claim it's the mother's psychosis, but these words, they read like a child's terrified whispers, not an adult's scribble. The lines loop across the walls, fading where water dripped. Underneath, half-erased words remain. Help me. Stay. My radio bleeps. Unit 23, where are you? It's dispatch. Camera department needs you to clear the basement for evidence placement. I step out of the shadows. On my way, I radio back. Then I stop. The silence is so complete, I swear I hear breathing. Almost a lullaby. I shine my light toward the far corner. Nothing but a pile of empty crates. My pulse spikes and I swallow. I climb the stairs, heart pounding. One commandment in policing: trust your gut. Something down there isn't right. I push the trapdoor closed, padlock it. I need backup. In the hallway, Zhao stands at the top of the other staircase, speaking into his phone. He pockets it, and as he turns, our eyes meet. I force a tight nod. He doesn't ask. He knows. We descend together. At the bottom, I point. He crouches, pulling latex gloves onto his hands. Put photo markers here. He traces the scrawls. My flashlight swivels, revealing more writing on a support beam. Don't wake her. He snaps photos. I hold the light steady. The beam lands on an overturned rocking chair in the corner, its seat facing the wall. I step closer. The cushion is torn, feathers spilling. A thin thread of blood stains the fabric. I lean in. There's a wet footprint, too small for the father, too large for the kids. I look at Zhao. He lowers his camera. Could be the mother crawling around. Could be a third party. Either way, this changes things. He stands, glances at me, then checks his own radio. We need forensic down here. Notify them. Upstairs, we find the children still trembling on the couch. I crouch beside them, recalling my own childhood bedroom's built-in closets where shadows danced. Hey, I whisper. You guys still doing okay? The boy nods, hugging his sister's hand. I glance at the smudged words upstairs and wonder if I should tell them someone's coming for a story from their hearts. But tonight, their safety is my priority. I stand and brush dust from my uniform. We escort the kids out and close the door behind them. As the van carries them away, the hush of the house settles again. I rub my jaw, fatigue threatening to crack my focus. Yet I know I'll return to the basement tomorrow with forensic, detectives, CPS, everyone. But first, I need to finish my report here, in this empty living room where laughter should have lived. I walk back to the armchair, pick up the shattered photo frame's backing to check for overlooked fingerprints. My radio bleeps again. Unit 23, paper report needed ASAP, over. I answer. Copy, dispatch. I'm on it. As I settle into the chair, I rub the spot on the banister where children's hands would have been mere hours ago. A single beam of streetlight filters through the front window. In that glow, I see dust motes, swirling like tiny lanterns. Then the overhead bulb flickers once, twice, and goes dark. Silence presses against me so hard I can taste it. I reach for my flashlight, but it's in my pocket. As I click it on, a small wooden toy rolls across the floor between me and the doorway. A carved soldier, missing an arm. I freeze, breath catching. No one else should be here. My radio crackles. Unit 23, status? Over. I don't answer. Instead, I listen to the dark and wonder if what's written on those walls was ever truly erased. I sit at the small folding table in the corner of the living room, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The glow of the screen feels harsh against the room's muted shadows. Detective Ruiz is beside me, leaning back in his chair, reviewing his notes. The overhead lights buzz softly. Outside, the front door remains propped open. a dull, yellow street lamp casting long bars of light across the carpet. I take a breath, taste stale coffee on my tongue, and force myself to begin the formal report. Unit 23 responded to a domestic disturbance call at 01140 hours. I type. I pause. The basement. The words scrawled with frantic hand. I add a line. Basement walls observed with red inscriptions consistent with childlike handwriting. Phrases include, "Mama, I hear her in the walls. Don't let her watch me sleep. And her voice is my lullaby." My stomach clenches at those words. I look up. Ruiz's eyes flick to mine. I nod. He understands why that detail looms large. I lean back, push my chair aside, and stand. My fatigue tugs like gravity. I walk to the front window and stare out at the minivan. It idles quietly in the driveway, engine ticking as it cools. I remember opening that door, stepping inside, hearing the children's cries, small, raw, and feeling a fear that would not leave me. Detective Zhao emerges from the kitchen. He's holding a small evidence bag. "Found under the couch," he says softly, fingertips brushing the zipper. Inside is a single crayon, dark red, smeared with dried plaster dust, likely used to write those basement messages. He hands it to me. I turn it over in my gloved hand. The tip is worn flat, as though pressed hard. I slip it into my own evidence pouch. "Anything else downstairs?" I ask. He shakes his head. "We bagged the corner rocking chair, the tool from upstairs, the locket. Tech'll finish photos soon." I nod. "Good, let's get statements." I open the hallway door. The father sits on the bottom stair, shoulders rounded. His shirt, now bagged for evidence, is replaced by a fresh jacket provided by the social worker. His children stand beside him, silent. CPS arrives at that moment. A small woman with gentle eyes, notebook in hand. She kneels beside the boy. "Hi there," she says, voice soft. "Can you tell me your name?" He nods. I step back and allow her space. I walk to the door of the master bedroom. The privacy screen still stands guard. Behind it, I hear muffled sobs, the mother's breaths shallow. I close my eyes for a moment. I know we have to keep her separated from her kids until she's stable. Detective Ruiz follows. "You ready?" he asks. I nod and pull aside the screen. She's on the bed, knees drawn up, arms wrapped tight. The sheets around her arm wound are blood-soaked. Her eyes flick open and fix on me, hollow, glazed. "Officer," she whispers. They won't stop talking." I crouch at the edge of the bed. "I'm here to help," I say. "Can you tell me your name?" She breathes heavily. Laura, I repeat. "I'm Officer Martinez. I need to know what happened." Her gaze slides past me. They're in the walls. They sing. They never stop. She jerks her head toward the hallway. I hear the faint echo of children's laughter, though neither child nor adult is present. Ruiz stands behind me. Gently, I place a hand on Laura's shoulder. "Laura, it's okay. There's no one here except us. You're safe." She tenses, then slumps back, tears leaking down her pale cheeks. "I tried to keep them out," she sobs, "but they got in through the cracks." I exchange a glance with Ruiz. He steps forward and kneels. "Let's get you checked out by EMS again," he says. Paramedics had already cleared her brief stabilization upstairs, but mental health assessment is separate. One of the paramedics enters with a teal clipboard. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us to the hospital," she says kindly. Laura nods blankly. I stand, address the paramedic and Detective Zhao. "Make sure to log her exact statements. She's a key witness and victim." I turn away and head for the dining room. where the social worker is gently coaxing the girl to draw a picture of her favorite place. The child's pencil movements are hesitant. I crouch beside her. "Hi, Pumpkin," I say quietly. She looks up, eyes red-rimmed. "Do you want me to protect your picture?" She shakes her head. "Can you draw us?" She scribbles a small house by a tree. I ask, "Who lives there?" She whispers, "Mommy." I nod, swallow. "Thank you for sharing." I stand, head pounding. My neck feels taut. I check my watch, 2:37 a.m. Part of me wants to go home, collapse into a bed. But another part, the part that's certain something else is here, insists I remain. I close the laptop, pack my pen and notepad, and gather my report kit. I step outside for air. The minivan's engine is off now. Someone turned it off when the kids were placed in CPS care. The street is silent, empty. I spot footprints in the dew on the grass. Too large, too small. A family's tracks. I kneel and trace the small prints with a gloved finger. They step from the sidewalk to the porch and into the house. Nothing beyond, no exit. The children were trapped. Inside, I encounter Detective Zhao again. I check the basement. No forced entry from below. "Someone had to go through that trap door," he says. "We'll need to interview the kids later, but mentally they're fragile right now." I nod. "Yes, let's wait until they're seen by a child psychologist." I pause. "Have we checked the walls for any other inscriptions? They could be under the drywall paint." Zhao sighs. "We took swabs, but we'll bring in paint analysis tomorrow." I rub my eye. Good. I return to the living room. The framed photo now sits on a side table, intact, plastic cover placed over it. I touch its corner gently. Home during happier times. I realize how easily a facade can shatter. Suddenly, my phone buzzes. It's dispatch. Unit 23 reports coming in of a similar case in nearby Brookfield Heights. Domestic call with basement writing. Over. My blood runs cold. Repeat, similar writing? I type into the phone. Seconds later, dispatch confirms. Exact phrases. "Mama, I'm hiding. She's in the walls." Over. I slip the phone into my pocket. I stare at Ruiz. We've got a copycat, or an accomplice. He stands, face grim. We need to coordinate with Brookfield PD. This might be a pattern. I pull on my coat. My legs feel unsteady. I haven't processed sleep, food, or rest for hours, but adrenaline surges. We both head outside to confer with Captain Harris, who's speaking quietly into his radio by the cruiser. He turns as we approach. "Martinez Ruiz, Brookfield PD just called in. 2 more houses with childlike scrawls." His face is tight. "We need a task force. Cover block by block. See if there's any connection." I nod, breathe deep. Understood. I'll start with crime scene matching and coordinate with Brookfield. Harris glances at me, then offers a rare half smile. "Take 5, get coffee, then grab me. We'll need you sharp." I manage a nod and duck back inside. Back in the living room, I sit and place my head in my hands. The walls feel like they're closing in. I know this isn't over. The mother's words echo. They in the walls. They never stop. I glance at the baseboard, imagining crackling voices behind it. Is it real? Hallucination? Something far darker? I open my phone and text Brookfield PD's sergeant. Copycat basement inscriptions. Meeting 0800 hours at Brookfield HQ. Bring all swabs and photos. I hit send. My phone buzzes with confirmation. We'll be there. I shut off my phone, exhale. The room drifts in and out of focus. I stand, shake my arms. Time to finish, I murmur. I sit at the laptop again, fingers hovering over the keys. I begin typing. Additional call-out, possible linked incidents in Brookfield Heights. Identical inscriptions. Recommend immediate area canvass and child welfare check on households with basements. Possible serial offender with fixation on domestic environments. I pause, stare at the words. Serial offender. Serial domestic horror. The phrase tastes bitter. I glance around the room one last time. The crayon, the locket, the messages all cataloged now as evidence. But the lasting evidence will be in my mind. The mother's haunted eyes, the children's tremors, the weight of a knife in their home. I close the laptop and stand. Ruiz appears at the doorway. "Ready?" he asks. I nod, shoulders straightening. We exit together into the night. Outside, the first hints of dawn seep into the sky, a pale promise. But I know no one will sleep. The investigation has only begun. I pause on the lawn, look back at the house. No lights, no movement. A quiet shell. I turn and walk toward the cruiser. My hand brushes the door handle. As I open it, dispatch crackles. Unit 23, be advised. Another basement call on Elm Street. Child screaming on line. Over. My pulse hammers again. I reach for the mic. Unit 23, responding. Location? Over. The air in the cab feels heavy, charged. I take the mic, ready to answer the call. My voice is steady, professional, even as my insides knot. Because this is what we do. We knock, we enter, we confront the darkness. And we never know what waits behind that next closed door. The call came in over my shoulder as I was closing up the report on Willow Lane. Unit 23, 911, domestic disturbance. Elm Street, Brookfield Heights. Possible basement entry, child's voice screaming. Proceed with caution. Over. My heart sank. Wood-framed houses with shallow basements, the same red scrawls. Children trapped in some private nightmare. I exchanged a look with Detective Ruiz across the front yard, where yellow evidence tape fluttered in the dawn breeze. He nodded. We'd been expecting it. I holstered my laptop in its case, clipped my radio to my vest, and slipped back into uniform gloves. The kids were in CPS care. Laura was admitted to psych, her battered arm stitched and wrapped. But the scars on her mind were still oozing. There was work to do. Unit 23 en route to Elm Street, I radioed. My voice sounded raw in my own ears. Lieutenant Harris responded immediately. Copy that. Brookfield HQ coordinating. ETA 2 minutes. Over. Brookfield Heights was less than 5 minutes north, but at this hour, traffic on residential streets still slowed you down. As I slid into the driver's seat, siren muted but lights flashing, I ran through my mental checklist. Team, Ruiz on second unit, Zhao and Kim on perimeter. EMS and mental health specialists on standby. Evidence kit, cameras out. Mental note, search basement, watch for inscriptions, record everything. I started the engine. The cruiser felt heavier than usual, as though someone had placed a weight on the hood. The red and blue strobes shimmered across the block's small lawns and mailboxes. I turned onto Elm Street, 1 block west of Cedar Grove Park. The house was a 2-story colonial with a low-pitched roof and a narrow driveway. A white minivan sat half on the grass, driver's window down, engine warm. I recognized the telltale indicator lights, the interior dome light flickering with each stutter of the engine. An earlier resident must have left in a hurry or been forced out. I killed the ignition. The cruiser's glow dropped to low idles. Outside, the air was crisp and smelled of damp soil. Leaves skittered across the pavement. I stepped out, door thudding shut, belt jingling. The din of my radio sounded distant in the night. Ruiz materialized by the front porch, pistol drawn but lowered, flashlight beam steady on the front door. He gave me a half nod. Kim and Zhao flanked the living room bay window, eyes scanning. No neighbor onlookers yet, phones still recording in the shadows. "Dispatch," I said over my shoulder. "Unit 23 on scene." Front door locked. No sign of struggle beyond the van. I tapped the door's surface with my fist. "Brookfield PD, open up, police!" Silence, then soft sobbing, lower than a whisper. A child's voice, "Please don't let her in." It drifted through the door seam. My heart thudded. I motioned Ruiz closer. He placed his ear to the door. The sobbing stopped. A new sound, scratching. Thin scratching, like nails on plaster. I signaled Kim to circle the back. She bolted to the side yard with Zhao. Once around, they found the basement egress window open an inch, jam splintered, latch broken. A small muddy footprint pressed against the sill from outside. I glanced at Ruiz. "Basement entry," I radioed. "Suspect or victim went down there. Forensics, ready your tech." We moved together, drawing our long guns in low-ready positions, flashlights tracing every crack in the siding. I pressed in beside Ruiz and nodded to Zhao, who raised a gloved hand and gave the silent okay. He slid his fingers under the window and lifted it the rest of the way. It swung inward with a creak. The basement stairwell was pitch black. A single bulb overhead dead. My flashlight beam carved a path down the narrow concrete steps. Cold air swirled around us, carried termites' dust and damp cardboard smell. The van's location made me wonder how long the engine had idled. Could it have been used to lure someone? Halfway down, I saw footprints in the dust. One adult, two small. They led deeper into the cavernous space. I counted, 10 steps to a low-hanging pipe, then they curved right. The beam caught scrawled words on a support beam. "Do not forget us." Blood dripped in streaks beneath the letters. I swallowed, finger hovering near the trigger guard. "Detective, you good?" I asked Ruiz. He nodded, lips pinched tight. We pressed on. The chain-link fence boxed around the gas heater. Storage shelves heaped with totes covered in plastic. Then another scrawl, this time on the concrete block wall. "They sleep in the cracks." The right side of the basement was stacked full. A makeshift fort built with chairs and a sheet, neon glow from a broken nightlight. I caught my reflection in a mirror propped on a shelf. Eyes wide, pale face. Part of me wanted to turn back. This was beyond any domestic case I'd ever handled. But duty kept me there. I shone the beam on the doorway to what looked like a utility closet. Behind it, fresh scratches on the door frame. I slid my hand up, felt warm streaks on the metal handle. Blood. I could taste copper in my mouth. "Get EMS here," I whispered into my radio mic. "Suspected injury, possible victims trapped." Ruiz approached the closet, thumb over his radio. Slowly, he eased the door open. Inside, 3 small bodies huddled, knees pulled to chins, sobbing. 2 girls, maybe 5 and 7, and a boy, perhaps 9. Their clothes were smeared with mud and splotches of red. One girl's hair was braided, the other's tangled. The boy's eyes were red-rimmed, gaze flicking between us. I dropped to one knee, lower gun muzzle, but still pointed down. "Hey," I said softly. "I'm Officer Martinez. You're safe now. We're not going to hurt you." My voice shook. The night had grown too heavy. The boy whispered, "She said she'd come for us." My stomach lurched. I reached into my vest, withdrew a granola bar. "Here," I said, handing it to him. "Eat." He took it, fingers trembling. The girl with the braided hair pressed into me. "Where's Mommy?" "She's coming," I said, uncertain if it was true. "She's getting help." Above us, the bulb flickered once, then went dark, plunging the basement into ink black. The only light was our flashlights. From the staircase, I heard thuds, something heavy being set down. My pistol snapped up. The beam swung to the bottom step to reveal a figure. A woman in a hooded sweatshirt, face obscured by shadows. She held a butcher knife, blade dull, crusted on one edge. "Step away," Ruiz growled from beside me. The figure didn't move. Then she lifted the hood. It was Laura. Her eyes were glassy, pupils dilated. Fresh stitches on her wrist hadn't even healed. A faint line of blood on her temple where she'd fallen before. She knelt halfway down the steps, one hand on the rail. "Don't," she said in a hollow monotone. "They need her." Her gaze flicked toward the hidden corner of the closet where the kids huddled. "She said not to let you take them." My radio died in my hand, static humming. I stared at Laura, then at the children's terrified faces. The blade in her hand quivered. I swallowed, voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, you're in crisis. Let us help you." She laughed, a cracked, hollow sound. "Help me? They're inside the walls. They're hungry." She raised the knife, I promised. Suddenly, footsteps pounded above. Detective Zhao and Officer Kim dropping 2x4s across the basement door for reinforcement. The concrete reverberated. Laura's head whipped upward. She backed toward the closet, step by step. I rose slowly, putting my weapon into low ready but keeping the flashlight beam trained on her. "Laura," I said gently, "don't make me do this." Her eyes flickered. Recognition? Fear? I couldn't tell. She pressed a finger to her lips, then darted around me and lunged toward the closet. "She's in there," Laura hissed. "She'll get them." I pivoted, grabbed her wrist, twisting. The knife clattered to the floor. Ruiz kicked it away. Kim cuffed her arms behind her back. Zhao pulled the children out, one at a time, handing them to waiting officers. I stood and looked at the empty closet, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd see it in my chest. No mother accompanied the children. No sign of any other adult. Just cold cement, the smell of damp, musty air, and the echo of children's whimpers. I knelt by the closet door, shone the light inside. The walls were scrawled again, phrases overlapping. "Mama, forgive me." "Let me stay." "Do you love me?" The last line was written in a child's smaller scrawl, the ink thicker. I pressed my thumb on it and felt a sticky residue. I bagged the panel. Laura was secured. CPS took the children. EMS checked her again, then she was driven off in an ambulance, screaming about voices in the pipes. I sank onto the bottom stair, head in my hands. The words, the copycat pattern, it made no sense. Why seed terror in each basement, scribble the same twisted lullaby, then abandon a mother to snap? Detective Ruiz sat beside me, soundless support. He finally asked, "Do you think it's her? A vigilante mother gone mad?" I shook my head. "She's a victim, but someone trained her to hear the walls, to carve those words." I wiped my eyes on my sleeve. No mother would... Not like this. We stood, gathered our gear. I shut the closet door, secured it with tape. Then I headed up the stairs for the last time, the house falling silent behind me. Outside, the first golden rays of sunrise touched the rooftops. I looked back at the basement window, now sealed with plywood. The inscription outside, on the wood, a new message scrawled in red. "They're still waiting." I stared until the light fully crept over the horizon, warming the yard. Then I turned, radio in hand, and walked toward my cruiser. "Unit 23, I said, voice steady. "Prepare to canvass every house with a basement in Brookfield, because this is far from over. Who's taught these mothers to carve nightmares into their walls? And who's watching us from the dark?" My words died in the morning air as I pressed the mic button. Silence answered. I drove off into the sunrise. Sirens silent now, lights off. but in my mind the walls still echoed with children's cries, waiting for someone to truly listen. And I wasn't sure I'd ever stop hearing them. I park my cruiser outside the station and kill the engine, but sleep won't come. The events of the last days churn in my mind like storm clouds. I step out into the cool morning air. Dawn is just breaking, and head toward the front door. My legs feel heavy, as if the weight of those children's cries is pressing down on me. Inside, the station is quiet except for the distant hum of fluorescent lights and the gentle tapping of keyboards. I sling my gear onto my desk and boot up my laptop. The case file sits on top, a stack of photos, reports, and swabs labeled Case 23 Will that I've barely glanced at since filing the preliminary report. I open the folder marked Basement Inscriptions and stare at the high-resolution images. Jagged red letters smeared across cinder block. Phrases overlapping in frantic loops. The handwriting shifts from childlike to adult scrawl in the same stroke, as if two minds bled onto the walls. I trace each line with my finger. A ping from my email drags me back. Detective Zhao, requesting meeting at 0800 with Brookfield Heights PD, Child Protective Services, and Behavioral Health Unit. The file attached. An incident report from 2 blocks away. Another basement call, same inscriptions, same abandoned mother pacing her kitchen. The seals on the evidence bags match ours. I rub my eyes and scroll through the victim's statement. I heard them crying in the pipes. They whispered my name. Laura's manic promise. I'll keep them safe. I swallow, remembering the rotten lullaby echo in that stairwell. It still lingers in my bones. Lieutenant Harris strides past my desk. He gives me a curt nod, no words needed. I gather the photos and evidence sheets, buckle my belt, and follow him to the briefing room. The air inside smells faintly of stale coffee and cleaning solution. Maps of the neighborhood cover one wall. Red pushpins mark each call location. Thanks for coming on short notice, Brookfield's Sergeant Miller begins. He's a tall man with grave eyes. Around the table sit CPS supervisors, a pediatric psychologist, Detective Ruiz, and behavioral health Captain Lopez. I lay out the timeline. Willow Lane at 01:14 hours, Brookfield Heights at 01:30, Elm Street at 02:05. 3 calls, 3 basements, 3 mothers. Patterns match, Miller says. Exact phrases on walls, same red pigment. He glances at me. What's our suspect profile? The psychologist, Dr. Avery, adjusts her glasses. We're likely dealing with coordinated mental health crises or manipulation. Something external is triggering these mothers to harm themselves and isolate their children. I clear my throat. We recovered crayon and wrench weapons. The mothers were not physically forced, until the children ended up locked in closets or basements. I point to the locket evidence. In each case, familial tokens are used. Photos, toys. It's personal. Someone's planting ideas. Lopez nods. This could be a cult or extremist group targeting suburban families. Messages about memory, walls, cracks. It's symbolic. He taps a note. We need to canvass online forums, any group with apocalyptic or domestic utopia manifestos. Ruiz adds, and surveillance. Any pamphlets or flyers left at scenes? I shake my head. Nothing except the inscriptions. The table falls silent. We're detectives and specialists, but this case is beyond protocol. After the meeting, I return to my desk. The clock reads 09:45. My inbox pings again. A neighbor's home. CCTV shows a white van idling outside 2 of the houses on the nights of the calls. No plates visible. Dash cam footage captures a figure milling near the basement windows, then disappearing into the dark. I download the clips. At home that evening, I try to shake it off with dinner, cold takeout in front of the TV. but halfway through the meal, my phone buzzes. New domestic disturbance 911 call, possible basement, from a town 10 miles south. I feel my chest tighten. I haven't had a day off in a week. Yet I dial dispatch, Unit 23, responding. Location? My voice sounds weary, resigned. I drive to the new address, running through the checklist. Backup, EMS, mental health team. When I arrive, street lamps flicker on either side of a brick bungalow. The front yard is strewn with children's toys, blocks, a scooter. A single window is cracked open, paint chipped. I know what that means. Entry point. My partner Kim joins me, cluster of evidence bags in her hands. We approach the window. She shines a light inside. Footprints trail through the dust. I unlatch the window and lift it, careful to make no noise. The basement stairs beckon. I draw my pistol, low ready, and step inside beside her. The basement light is out, but the hall bulb overhead flickers. We follow the footprints to the far wall where words are painted freshly in deep crimson. Don't leave me. My breath hitches. The letters drip like tears. I kneel and inspect with gloved fingers. The paint is sticky. Kim takes photos. Whoever did this, they aren't hiding it, she whispers. Then I hear it. A soft giggle from the utility closet. Not a child's, too brittle, echoing off the walls. My pulse races. I mount the camera and peep inside. A single wire spool and a crayon, but no person. The closet door swings closed of its own accord. I draw my flashlight across the dark corner. Nothing. We sweep the rest of the basement. Stacked boxes, a treadmill, an old chest. No children, no suspect. But mud is caked on the floor in a small circle where someone kneeled. I bag a swab. At the top of the stairs, I call for EMS and CPS. Back in the living room, I find muddy handprints smudged on a white wall. Small, adult-sized, but in red pigment. Someone reached out, maybe traced the lines a second time. I bag that too. My hands tremble as I zip the evidence pouch. As I leave the house, the faint sound of humming drifts down the crawlspace vent. It's warped, like a nursery rhyme slowed to half speed. I pause, heart pounding, listen. Then it stops. My radio buzzes. Unit 23, clear to release the scene. I reply, copy. Scene clear. At home, sleep finally finds me, but nightmares plague me. I'm back in that basement, footsteps echoing behind me, the walls dripping words I can't erase. I wake gasping, sweat damp on my forehead. My phone is on the nightstand, unread messages from CPS and the behavioral health unit asking for updates. I ignore them and lie still, staring at the ceiling. Morning arrives too soon. I shower, suit up, and head to HQ. On my desk, a single new evidence bag sits. Inside, a scrap of fabric, red, fuzzy, like a child's sweater. There's no note, no case number. I open it. Stuck to the inside flap in red crayon are 4 words. Officer, help us. My hand shakes as I drop the bag. I know that message wasn't scrawled by any of the mothers. It wasn't from the children. It came from someone, or something, else. I look up at the wall clock. I'm late for the meeting with Brookfield. But first, I call Lieutenant Harris. Sir, I say, voice barely above a whisper, we have a new twist. He pauses. What did you find? I swallow hard. A message for me. I hold the phone close. They're in my walls now. And at that moment, every creak of the station floor sounds like a whisper in the dark. What do you do when the walls themselves start to call your name? It was 2:05 a.m. on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021, when the dispatch voice crackled through my shoulder mic, dragging me from half-dream as I scanned the empty streets of Cedar Falls. Unit 12, We've got a 911 hang-up at 412 North Elm Street. Possible domestic disturbance. Caller reported shouting and a child crying. Line went dead. Send backup if possible. Over. I pressed the mic button. Copy that, dispatch. Unit 12 en route. ETA 2 minutes. I glanced at my partner's empty seat. Patrol Sergeant Lopez was tied up on another call, so it was just me. Officer Rachel Owens, fresh out of the academy, still wearing that 0800 to 2000 rookie badge shine. I flipped my cruiser's overhead lights into stealth mode. No blue-red strobes yet, just the faint glow of the dash and the console clock, which read 2:06. The night air was thick and humid, scenting of cut grass and the faint tang of river water from the nearby Cedar River. A low haze clung to the street lamps, turning each into a haloed beacon. My tires whispered on wet asphalt. There'd been rain off and on for the last hour, and my breath misted in the cabin as I wrestled the radio mic back into its clip. I clipped my flashlight to the belt on my left hip, mirror polished and ready, and ran a hand over the butt of my duty pistol, snug in its holster on the right. Standard procedure for any domestic call. Weapons up, awareness on high. As I turned off Main Avenue onto Elm, the houses blurred by like ghost silhouettes. Darkened windows, overgrown lawns. An occasional recycling bin tumbled at the curb. A few houses had their porch lights off. Most were dark. It struck me, as it often did on these midnight runs, how isolated a quiet suburban street could feel when something was wrong. I eased the cruiser to a stop 3 houses down from 412, so I could approach without announcing my presence with sirens or bright lights. I killed the engine, turned off the headlights, and slipped out into the night. My boots hit the damp pavement, and I crouched low behind my door, my hand resting on the grip of my flashlight. I tapped my mic again. Unit 12 on scene, silent approach, porch light off. I'm stepping to the front door. Footsteps muffled by grass, followed by static silence. Dispatch confirmed. I rose and moved toward the house, each step measured. The front stoop was cracked concrete, slick with dew from the lawn sprinklers that must have kicked on earlier. I could hear nothing but the quick pant of my own breath, the distant hum of the highway, and, faintly, a soft electronic hum from inside. A television left on low in the living room. I pressed my palm against the cool metal of the door handle. No sign of forced entry. The knob turned under my glove. I hung back, raised my flashlight in one hand and my pistol in the other, beam cutting a triangle of light across the threshold. Cedar Falls, PD. Officers, I called out. Open up, please. We got a report of yelling and a child crying. A door slammed somewhere past the entryway. I stepped inside, boots squishing slightly on wet carpet near the door. The foyer was dimly lit by the amber glow of a street lamp filtering through lace curtains. A muddy footprint marked the rug's edge. Chairs overturned, cushions torn open, foam oozing onto hardwood. I clicked my light back toward the hallway. No silhouette moved beyond the kitchen arch. My pulse raced, but I forced steady breathing. My training kicked in, clear every room, announce presence, keep civilians at a distance, call for backup when you're uncertain. I tapped my shoulder mic. Unit 12, I'm in the foyer. Requesting backup on a possible barricade. No visual on victims or suspects yet. Dispatch acknowledged, estimated backup arrival in 90 seconds. I pivoted toward the living room first, my boots heavy on the creaky boards. The TV stood on an entertainment center, volume muted, but picture flickering. A late-night infomercial hawking weight loss gadgets. A decorative vase lay shattered at the base, ivory shards scattered like teeth. A child's drawing, Crayon-bright houses and stick-figure family fluttered on the coffee table. It showed a smiling mom, a dad with a frown, and two small figures holding hands. A third figure, half erased, stood near the bottom edge, scribbled out in furious red. My throat tightened. I edged toward the hallway. The smell shifted, warm, coppery undertones that reminded me of old perfume laced with something acrid. My flashlight swept over the door frame to the kitchen. There, the overhead bulb buzzed and flickered, casting strobing shadows. Dishes piled in the sink. A pitcher of half-poured milk tipped over, its contents seeping into cracks around the linoleum. A wooden dining chair lay on its side, one leg snapped off. I called again. Cedar Falls PD. If anyone's here, make yourself known. No response. I advanced down the hall, each step cautious. The carpet runner muffled my approach. I heard it then. Soft, whimpering sobs from the far room. My heart seized. It was unmistakable. A small voice trembling, crying. I rounded the corner into the master bedroom. The door hung open, swaying slightly. I clicked my light onto the bed, blankets twisted, pillow feathers strewn like snow. I stepped in, shining across scattered clothing and an upended nightstand. A pair of sneakers lay in front of a narrow closet door, scuffed and dusty. Then I saw them. Two small bodies pressed against the wall, hyperluminous in the flashlight beam. A little girl, maybe 6, clutching a faded teddy bear stained at the seam, her eyes wide like saucers, reflecting pure terror. Beside her, a boy, a year or two older, arms wrapped around himself, knees drawn up. Both shook, faces wet with tears. I holstered my pistol and crouched to their level. "Hey, it's okay. I'm Officer Owens. You're safe now." My voice shook despite my effort. The girl stared without blinking. The boy sniffed, then whispered, "Mommy's hurt." My mind raced. Where was the mother? Where was the suspect? I rose and swung my light toward the bathroom door at the far end of the bedroom. It was shut. I approached, ear against the wood. No movement, no answer. I could hear my own pulse thumping in my ears. "Mom?" I called softly. "Are you all right?" Silence. My radio crackled. Unit 12, backup on scene. Relief washed over me like cold water, but it was tempered by adrenaline. I moved to gently usher the children toward the doorway. "Come on, sweethearts. Let's get you out of here." I reached for the doorknob to clear the rest of the house, training on that bathroom, when a faint creak echoed from inside. My hand froze mid-air. I turned to look at the kids. The little girl's eyes tracked mine. The boy swallowed hard. I felt the house shifting around me, its history of laughter and arguments, of lives lived behind these walls now stained by fear. I forced a calm tone. "Stay here. I'm going to check one more room. I'll be right back, okay?" I pivoted, flashlight in hand on holster, and pushed the bathroom door open. The hinges squealed. Inside, steam curled from a half-run faucet. Towels lay on the floor, sodden. Pink wallpaper peeled at the seam. Then I saw her. The mother, slumped on the edge of the clawfoot tub, eyes squeezed shut, arm dangling over the side. Her wrist was red, and a thin trickle of blood ran down her forearm, pooling on the tile. I paused, shock freezing me for a moment. This wasn't just a fight, it had escalated far beyond a shouting match. I should have radioed it in right then, but the knot in my chest tightened, and I swallowed hard, my throat raw. I tucked my flashlight under my arm and reached for her shoulder. Her head lolled heavy as I supported her and guided her from the tub onto the floor. Her eyes fluttered open. Panic, relief, resignation all mixed in one split-second stare. She whispered, He said he'd come back for me, for them. And before I could ask who or what or where he was now, the room went silent except for the drip of that faucet. I clicked my radio. Unit 12 to dispatch. Female victim down, 2 juveniles secure, suspect unknown, possibly still inside. Need EMS and Detective Leibowitz, over. As I knelt beside her, listening to her ragged breaths and the muffled sounds of my own backup entering the foyer, I felt something shift in the air, like the calm before a second storm. And in that pregnant pause, my gut told me the worst of this night wasn't over yet. I waited until the paramedics had loaded Mrs. Dalton onto the gurney before I let myself exhale. The screech of ambulance tires and the thump of the rear doors closing marked their departure, and the night fell back into an uneasy hush. Only the hiss of my own radio and the distant wail of sirens remained. I stepped into the hallway of 412 North Elm, flashlight and pistol back in hand, adrenaline still humming in my veins. Sergeant Lopez arrived behind me, his bulk filling the doorway. "What have you got?" he asked quietly, eyes scanning the chaos. "Mother found in the bathroom, possible wrist laceration, but not self-inflicted," I reported. "2 juveniles in the master bedroom, shaken but unharmed physically. No sign of the suspect so far." He nodded and gestured at Officer Miller, who was crouched beside the children in the bedroom doorway. The little girl had finally murmured her name, Ella, and the boy, Caleb, kept hugging his knees. Miller offered them water and a handful of animal crackers. I caught the girl brushing away tears. Her lip trembled. "Let's get them to the cruiser," Lopez said. "I'll take point on securing the rest of the house." I slipped past and knelt beside Miller. "Ella, Caleb, I'm Officer Owens. You're doing great." I scanned the room one more time. The broken lamp on the dresser, the closet door slightly ajar, and the little girl's drawing pinned to the wall. Stick figures surrounded by jagged red scribbles. "Your dad? Did he ever draw pictures with you?" I asked softly. Ella shook her head. Caleb looked at the sketch, then back at me. "He didn't want us here," the boy whispered. I swallowed. That single line echoed my mother's confession. He said he'd come back for them. I reached into my utility belt and drew a pair of child-safe zip ties. "Let's get you 2 in the cruiser, okay? We'll make sure you and your mom are safe." Miller guided them out, and I followed to the foyer, pausing to shine my light across the living room one more time. The infomercial was still playing. Someone had forgotten to turn the TV off, but nothing had changed. I turned to the kitchen. A fine layer of dust covered the fridge, except where someone had scrawled words in the grime. "Not safe." My hand tightened on the flashlight handle. A threat. A warning. I snapped a quick photo with my phone for evidence, then climbed the 2 steps into the kitchen. The warning was smeared beneath 2 magnets, a ceramic cat and a souvenir bottle opener from Maplewood Summerfest 19. It looked spontaneous, not part of everyday decor. "Sergeant," I called over my shoulder, "we've got a message here." He came up beside me, let out a low whistle. That's telling. I shone the light down toward the floor. Flecks of what looked like dried blood stained the grout near the sink. Another photo, half torn, lay face down. I flipped it. A family portrait. The father's face was scratched away. "Looks like he's already tried to erase himself," I said. Lopez guided me toward the back door. "We need to check the perimeter. I'll call for K9. Outside, the night air was cooler, the soft breeze stirring the tall grass along the fence line. I scanned the backyard under my flashlight. Wood chips by the children's playset, a barbecue grill covered in tarp, and the garden shed. The shed door stood slightly open. I slipped off my glove, tested the latch, and it swung inward with a creak. My heart thumped. Without hesitation, I swept my beam inside. Rusty tools hanging from pegboard, a folded bicycle, a pair of scuffed work boots, but no sign of anyone. Just dusty floorboards. I stepped in, careful not to touch anything. At the back wall lay a pile of wooden planks. I knelt and ran my fingers along the floor in front of them. Smudges of damp soil, small footprints leading between the planks. My radio sputtered. Unit 12, K9 Enforcer is on site. Handler is setting up perimeter. I stood and backed out, quietly closing the door behind me. I turned to see the handler and German shepherd approaching from the side gate. The dog's head lifted at my scent, nostrils flaring. The handler patted the dog's flank and released the tether. Enforcer bounded forward, nose low to the ground. I watched him follow the footprints toward the fence line. He paused, looked up at me, then darted forward again. I moved to follow, shining my light ahead, but the beam caught something out of place. The back gate was ajar, its latch broken. The chain securing it lay torn. "Looks fresh," I said, crouching to examine the splintered wood. Someone forced their way out. The dog led us beyond the fence into the neighbor's yard. I flashed across the pale siding of the adjacent house. No lights on inside. The dog continued toward the street, nose tracking a trail into the darkness. I keyed my mic. Unit 12 to dispatch. K9 is tracking the suspect from the rear yard. Possible direction of travel. Northbound on Elm toward Maple Street. Sending coordinates. My stomach nodded. Northbound Elm meant cutting through a well-lit commercial strip. Traffic would be light at this hour, but a witness might spot someone. I motioned for the handler to follow. We moved single file, eyes darting to every sound. The hum of an air conditioner, the drip of a leaky gutter, the distant bark of a neighborhood dog. About 50 yards down, the dog halted at a street lamp base. He sat, legs rigid, ears pricked, his jaw clenched around a scrap of fabric. I approached and knelt, shining my light on the torn edge of a plaid shirt, cotton blend, untouched by water. I carefully bagged it in an evidence pouch. "Look at this," I called to Lopez, who jogged up behind me. He knelt and peered. Good catch. Could belong to Dalton, or to someone helping him escape. I studied the street beyond, empty sidewalks, the glowing facades of a corner convenience store, its neon sign humming. No people in sight. The dog sat waiting. I tapped the handle of my flashlight against my palm. "Dispatch, we're going to try canvassing the block. Ask nearby residents if they saw anyone fitting description. Anyone running or acting suspicious. I'm going door to door." Lopez nodded. "I'll secure the scene here. Keep me posted on anything you find." As I walked back toward the first house, I felt the weight of every second. At every front stoop I stopped, knocked firmly, and announced, "Cedar Falls PD, investigating a domestic disturbance nearby. Did you see anyone running away around 2 a.m.? Each door I knocked brought more silence, or sleepy no's. One neighbor admitted she'd heard raised voices around 1:45 a.m., but assumed it was a movie scene. At the fourth house, I found something else. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel driveway beside the garage. I snapped photos, noted the tread pattern. It matched the Ford Explorer department cruiser I drove, but these were deeper, wider. A larger SUV or truck. A witness might have seen it. I completed the canvass, but the night yielded no new leads. No one had seen Dalton, no one had heard a vehicle speeding off. The K9 team returned, no further track past the convenience store. The dog sat, panting, head low. Back at a 412 North Elm, the yellow crime scene tape fluttered in the breeze. Detective Leibowitz was on the porch, interviewing the children again through an open bedroom window. The little girl clutched her bear tighter, eyes red. The boy stared at the floor. I walked up and handed the detective the plaid fabric, pointing to the broken gate. This came from the suspect's shirt. Co-9 tracked him to Main Street but lost the trail there. He examined it, nodding. Good work. I'll have the lab run prints and DNA. Let's get the children and Mrs. Dalton to the station for statements. They'll need an officer with them until they have a family member. I exhaled, tension draining from my shoulders, only to feel the next wave tighten my chest. On the steps, someone had scribbled in chalk, "He watches." Beneath, a tiny hand had traced a circle around the words. I froze. Lopez came up beside me. "What is it?" I ran my flashlight beam across the script. Children's block letters, shaky but deliberate. My voice dropped. "Ella's hand, I think. We missed this when we first came in." Lopez scanned the yard. "That's unsettling." I swallowed. The entire house, already a crime scene, now felt alive with hidden threats. Someone had been here after we left, or maybe he never left at all. I tapped my mic. "Dispatch, securing 412 North Elm. Request extra units to keep the scene contained. Also, request a patrol check on Main Street convenience store video for 2 a.m. footage." As we waited for more units to arrive, I stood on the porch, flashlight in hand, staring into the dark rooms beyond the windows. The chalk message glowed faint in the porch light. I knew then, this night wasn't over, not by a long shot. I dropped back into the driver's seat of my cruiser, hands still trembling from the cold metal of that kitchen faucet and the sticky warmth of Mrs. Dalton's blood on my gloves. The dashboard clock read 3:12 a.m. Backup had secured the scene, the yellow tape fluttering in the mild breeze. K9 and evidence had gone off to comb the convenience store lot, and Detective Leibowitz was inside taking preliminary statements from Ella and Caleb. But I wasn't about to let this night end without pushing a little further. Sergeant Lopez had given me the nod to continue canvassing Maple Street and beyond, while he stayed with the crime scene and coordinated with EMS and victim services. I slid the cruiser into gear and eased down Elm one more time, the street lamp halos sliding past my windshield like ghostly sentinels. I parked between two hedge-lined driveways and killed the engine. My feet met soft grass at the curb, and I clicked my flashlight on. Maple Street was a mirror of Elm, neat lawns, sliders shut tight, shallow porch lights. I knocked on the first door, number 410, a pale yellow craftsman-style house. No answer. I jiggled the doorknob, latched. I moved to the adjacent window and tapped the glass. Nothing. "Hello? Cedar Falls PD. Possible 911 domestic suspect may have fled northbound," I called. Silence. I circled the front yard, shining into every gap in the hedges. No footprints. The flower beds were dry, earth cracked in the moonlight. I checked the porch chairs. No sign. Next door, a lone lamppost flickered over number 408. I approached, tried the doorbell, no chime. I knocked 3 times, waited, no stir. I moved on, 3 houses down, 404. A 2-story brick that looked recently flipped. A lone car, an old red Tacoma, sat in the drive. I moved up the walkway, each step soft on gravel. I knocked, and within seconds the front door opened an inch. A woman's eye peered out. "Officer," I said calmly, "we're investigating a possible domestic violence suspect who fled through this neighborhood around 2 a.m. He's considered armed and dangerous. Did you see anyone running or a truck or SUV speeding north?" She widened her eyes. "No, nothing," she whispered, leaning back. "I was asleep." I noticed her door chain was undone. I said, "That's okay. If you remember anything, footsteps, a flash of headlights, even voices, Call our dispatch at 555-6611. Stay inside and keep your doors locked, please. She nodded, closed the door. I jotted notes on my pad. No witness. Vehicle, red Tacoma. Owner home, no observations. I moved on. I slid back into the cruiser and called it in. Unit 12 to dispatch. Maple Street canvas negative. I'll go grab coffee and review video from the Maple Cafe at Main and Elm. Camera angles might pick him up fleeing southbound. Dispatch confirmed. I drove to the convenience store, its front bathed in harsh fluorescent light. I parked under a CCTV camera and ducked inside. The clerk, bleary-eyed, punched in my badge number. Detective Lebo. Officer Owens, you said? He pointed to a monitor behind the counter. What time frame? I checked my note. 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. I need the doorbell cam and the pumps facing Elm. He tapped keys, the screen filled with time-stamped clips. I leaned in as he played back the relevant segment. First clip, 1:58 a.m., an out-of-state Prius parked at Pump 3. Next, 2:04 a.m., no vehicles. A minute later, 2:05 a.m., a Ford Explorer, dark blue, idled at Pump 1 for about 15 seconds, then pulled away northbound on Elm. Then, 2:07 a.m., a white moving van pulled into the lot. Plain steel sides, no logos, tinted windows. It paused, its taillights glowing. The driver sat still, unmoving. My heart punched. That's it. Mrs. Dalton borrowed a white van. He might have followed her here, thinking she was alone. The clip rewound. I watched him step out. He wore dark jeans and a hooded sweatshirt zipped halfway. Black gloves. No face visible. He circled the van, peering under the door, then climbed back in and drove off northbound. I keyed my radio. Unit 12. Got white van footage. Suspect vehicle. Heading north on Elm. No plate visible. Hooded male in black gloves. Abort coffee. Heading back to Elm to set up a perimeter. I left the convenience store and went back to Elm, parking 3 blocks north of the store, just past the intersection with Poplar Avenue. I killed the engine, sat in the hush, and waited for Lopez's patrol cars to arrive to block cross streets. 2 marked units pulled in behind me, then a third. We positioned to cover Elm between Maple and Poplar. I climbed out, flashlight and radio in hand, pitch black sky overhead. The night felt too silent. No wind, no crickets, just the buzz of distant traffic on Highway 20. I knocked on my own driver's door window. Sergeant, perimeter set. I'll take the east side. Lopez, you're west. Uniformed cars on Maple and Poplar. Any vehicle matching that van, we stop, lights and sirens. He nodded. Copy. I moved to the edge of the curb, flashlight beam sweeping every passing car. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes. My shift superintendent had taught me patience. Stakeouts aren't fast. At 4:05 a.m., a van's taillights appeared miles away, rectangular, high-mounted. It slowed as it neared Main Avenue, turned onto Elm, slowed again at the corner. The streetlights threw black rectangles across the road. I stepped into the street radioing, Unit 12 to all units, white van, possibly suspect, heading south on Elm. Prepare to take it. 2 patrol cars peeled out behind me with lights off. I stayed still as the van rolled by. At 20 miles per hour, it passed within 10 feet. I got a glimpse. No markings, generic black wheels, license plate shadowy. The driver's face was obscured by the hood and darkness. I pointed my light and yelled, "Cedar Falls, PD, pull over now." The van didn't slow. I drew my weapon, heart pounding. "I'll light you up," I barked. I clicked on my strobe. Flashing blue lit the street. The van accelerated, splashing through a small puddle, then made a hard right onto Maple, right into the perimeter. Suspect fleeing south on Maple, I shouted. The other units joined in, lights flashing, siren piercing the silence. I accelerated behind, cruise control off, hands steady on the wheel. The van weaved between stalled cars parked along the curb. Dangerous, but no pedestrians. I radioed the pursuing unit's tail numbers. It was over 10 blocks before the van realized it was surrounded. It braked hard at the T-intersection at Maple and Oak Street, fishtailed, then came to rest across both lanes. The driver's door opened, and a figure bolted. Tall, lean, hood falling back, revealing dark hair plastered under a knit beanie. I skidded to a stop 20 feet back, slammed my door open, and dropped to a crouch, weapon trained. "Police, don't move," I yelled. The suspect froze mid-stride, hands raised. I sprinted forward, flashlight jabbing the silhouette. 2 units arrived, 1 on each flank. Within seconds, the man was on the ground, cuffed, reciting, "Please don't shoot, please don't shoot." My blood hammered. I holstered my weapon only after Lopez reached us and confirmed cuffing. I approached, badge out. "Hands behind your back. You're under arrest for evading police and suspicion of aggravated assault," I said. He spat. "I'm not the Dalton guy, I swear." But the hood, the gloves, his pattern of movement, too many matches. I read him his Miranda rights. He mumbled through each. "You have the right to remain silent." I patted him down. No weapon, no ID. I pulled off the gloves. Fresh mud under each fingertip, matching prints taken from the side yard gate. I called it in. "Unit 12. Suspect in custody, appears clean. Will need transport to city jail and booking. ETA for arrival, 5 minutes." At the station, we processed him. Photograph, fingerprint scan, DNA swabs. He gave a name, Jason Porter, age 28, no criminal record. We ran him through the system. Nothing. CSI reports match the gloves to forensic evidence. I sat across from Porter in the interrogation room, one-way mirror behind him. The dim ceiling light cast harsh angles on his face. I slid the photo stills of the backyard gate and the chalk warning on the porch. "Recognize this place?" He leaned forward, expression hard. "Never been there," he said quickly. I watched his eyes. He was lying. But I dropped it for now. "You were seen in a white van, traced to my perimeter. You evaded arrest. What's your connection to 412 Elm?" Silence. The mirror stared back at me. I clicked off the recorder. "We'll figure it out sooner or later," I said, standing. I stepped out, pulling the door behind me. By dawn's edge, the sky dulled. I drove back to North Elm for one last look. The street was quiet again. Morning shift starting. Joggers warming up. Detective Leibowitz was locking up his evidence bag. Mrs. Dalton and the children were taken by a family friend. The suspect, Porter, was in jail. I stood in the driveway of 412, flashlight in pocket. The broken gate, the chalk message, the torn photograph. All still there, waiting. No twist yet, no final revelation. Just the weight of unanswered questions pressing in with the coming dawn. How long had Porter been watching that house? Why the warning in chalk? He watches. And who taught a 6-year-old to write it? And most unsettling of all, if he wasn't Dalton's husband, who was he? And what did he intend to do when he came back? I took a deep breath, tapped my badge against my chest, and walked to the cruiser, knowing this story was far from over, and that the next call could send me right back into the dark. I drove back to the station under a sky streaked with bruised lavender and pale gold, the rising sun pressing through the windshield like an accusation. My cruiser smelled faintly of stale coffee, and the sweat I hadn't had time to wash off after the chase. As I pulled into the lot, I realized I hadn't eaten since my shift began 24 hours ago, but hunger was a whisper drowned out by everything I'd seen. I shut off the engine, sat for a moment, and let the silence settle. Inside, the station was its usual half-empty self. Bleached tile floors, humming fluorescent lights, the low murmur of radio traffic, and the distant clack of keyboards. I keyed my badge on the door and stepped into the bullpen. Detective Leibowitz was hunched over his desk, face lit by the glow of 3 monitors. He looked up when I cleared my throat. "Morning," he said, but it came out more like an apology. I nodded and peered at his screens. One showed the body cam footage from my initial entry into the Dalton home. Another displayed the stills of the chalk warning and broken gate, and a third scrolled through the CCTV clips I'd grabbed from the convenience store. "They brought you coffee?" I asked. He pushed a styrofoam cup toward me. I cradled it in both hands. It was lukewarm. "Late night," he said. "I wanted to talk before you crashed." I drained half the cup and set it down. "What's our next move?" Leibowitz leaned back. "Porter's locked up in interrogation. We've got matching prints on the gate and the gloves, but he's not Dalton's husband, and the Daltons never mentioned him. No connection in the system. He says he just stumbled onto the house, thought it was empty, maybe got curious, then panicked." I rubbed my temple. "Curious enough to slash a gate, scribble messages in chalk, and run when we rolled in? Doesn't add up." He shook his head. "No, it doesn't. We keep him until the lab report confirms the blood match, but even then, we still don't know motive. And why teach a 6-year-old to write 'he watches'?" I shivered, despite the warmth in the room. "That line keeps me up." He tapped a key. "Listen to this." He clicked a clip labeled 911 audio 412 elm.wave. The speakers crackled with static before my own voice emerged. Clear, clipped, professional. "Cedar Falls, PD, what's your emergency?" Then another voice, muffled, trembling, a woman's voice. "Yes, I need someone now. My husband. He's violent, It cut out. My heart thudded. That wasn't the Dalton house. That was the recording from an entirely different 911 hang-up a few blocks away on Maplewood Drive 2 nights ago. An incident that, per records, sent officers to an empty house where the caller hung up. No crime there. I looked at Leibowitz. "That's my voice," I said. He nodded. "That's you, all right, but that call happened Monday at 11:47 p.m. You weren't the dispatcher." My stomach turned. Then whose voice is that matching my cadence, my accent, everything? He rewound and played again. The caller's voice turned to static near the end, but faint beneath the crackle was a whispered echo. "Help me, help us." I felt fingers of ice curl around my spine. They spliced my voice into another call? Or something is using it. I stood, pacing. That means whoever did this has access to our recordings, or something else entirely. He pushed me a cup of coffee. "Thought you might need it." I set the cup aside, hands still trembling. "Who would do that?" Leibowitz closed his eyes. "I don't know, but there's more." He pulled up an email on his screen. Subject line, "Review audio 412 North Elm." He clicked a link, opened a waveform analysis. "Our lab flagged background audio on your body cam just before you kicked in the front door. There's a tonal frequency, low-level hum around 60 hertz, almost like a home generator, but when they isolated it, there's a voice hidden beneath." He played a slow-speed clip. At first, I heard wind, then, faintly, a child's laughter, tense, almost mechanical, then a man's voice saying, "Find us, set us free." My breath caught. That's Ella's voice?" He nodded, but altered. I closed my eyes. I remembered opening that door. The cold snap of air, the scattered furniture, but I hadn't heard laughter. I'd only heard dread. Someone planted that under the recording, I whispered. Someone wanted us to find it. My radio crackled. Unit 12, dispatch to Unit 12, come in. I grabbed the mic. Owens. Unit 12, you have an alert, unidentified caller. It's an open line, very quiet. I flicked the switch. Send me the location. 412 North Elm. They say... Static. Come back. My stomach clenched. I dropped the phone and exchanged a look with Leibowitz. That house, I said. It's calling me. He reached forward. It's tape delayed. They played your voice through the PA. Somebody's still inside. Static iterated recordings of the 911 line. I spun toward him. You're saying the chalk message, the footprints, the call. Someone's been living there or hiding there, recording us? He closed his laptop. I say we go back. I swallowed, adrenaline spiking again. The caffeine buzzed. My ears rang with that child's laughter. My badge felt heavy against my chest. Let's finish this, I said, voice steady. We piled into a patrol SUV, lights off. A single spotlight on the roof. We parked 3 houses down from 412. The early morning air was crisp, birds silent, no wind. I grabbed my flashlight, holstered my weapon, and approached the porch. The door was still ajar, the interior pitch black. Leibowitz clicked his light on. Backup is 10 mics behind. Let's clear the house. Find whoever's inside, record everything. I stepped to the threshold and called out, Cedar Falls, PD, if you're inside, come out with your hands up. Silence. Nothing moved. I gripped the doorframe and stepped forward. The stale smell of fear and old perfume hit me. My flashlight swept over the overturned vase, the hastily swept footprints, the shards of chalk dust near the threshold. Then I heard it again. Faint behind me, like the whisper of cloth against wood. Find us. I spun, light slicing through the dark. But there was nothing but the empty hallway. My heart slammed. Leibowitz whispered, You hear that? Yeah, I said. Body cam's on, he said, and I activated mine without thinking. A red dot appeared on my chest rig. We cleared the living room methodically, room by room, following the dance hall script of training. Announce, enter, sweep, secure. But each room was empty, no sign of a second person. Nothing new. In the kitchen, I saw the chalk message again, scrawled on the fridge, He watches. Beneath it, a second line in a different hand, neater, almost adult. She sees. I shivered. That wasn't there before. Leibowitz moved to the window and pried the sill free. Underneath, tucked in the frame, was a small cassette tape, labeled in pencil. Listen. I exchanged a look with the detective. Who still uses tapes? He shrugged. Only someone old school or someone trying to freak us out. I pressed my ear to the recorder and hit play. A click, then static, then my voice. Cedar Falls, PD. Are you there? And beneath it, a low undercurrent of the same child's laughter, the whisper, Set us free. My blood ran cold. I dropped the recorder, and it clattered on the linoleum. What the hell? Leibowitz murmured. I felt my legs go weak. I stepped back toward the doorway, shining my light at the ceiling, the walls, every shadow. Then I heard a faint scrape behind me like a nail dragged across wood. I turned. In the hallway, a shape moved, a silhouette of a little girl, thin and pale, stepping out of the darkness. Her eyes glowed in the flashlight beam. She tilted her head, mouth open in a silent plea. I raised my pistol, voice shaking but loud. Cynthia Dalton, step into the light. Her form flickered, like a bad projection. She whirled, retreating into the black. Then, the hallway door swung shut with enough force that I heard the clap through my ears. I clicked off my light and holstered my pistol, heart hammering. "We need a ladder to the attic," I said. Leibowitz stared at where she'd vanished. "What did you see?" I swallowed. "I don't know, but she was there." I tapped my chest mic. "Dispatch, we need SWAT and fire rescue. Possible rescue scenario. Repeat, possible rescue scenario at 412 North Elm." My voice was steady now, but inside I felt the tremor of fear. As Leibowitz moved to call it in, I looked back at that closed door, knowing the story wasn't about a runaway husband, or an intruder, or even a cop's procedural night. It was about something darker, something living in the walls and floorboards of that house. Something that had been waiting for us. And now that we'd answered its call, I was the one trapped inside its story. What would I find when I opened that attic door? I palmed the attic ladder's base, feeling its metal rungs cold and slick against my gloves. The SWAT medic, Sergeant Lopez, has ordered the area secured. The fire rescue techs stand by the front door with cameras rolling, and Detective Leibowitz is setting up his mobile workstation in the foyer. I nod once and yank the ladder down. It unfolds with a metallic clank that echoes through the silent house. My flashlight beam cuts through the dimness as I climb. Each wrung a deliberate effort against the weight in my pack and the hammering of my heart. Above me, the attic door creaks open on ancient hinges, revealing a shallow crawl space no taller than my shoulder. Dust motes swirl in the shaft of my beam, dancing like restless spirits. I drop onto my knees and peer inside. "Officer Owens," Lopez calls from below. "Proceed carefully." "I'm in," I reply, voice low and steady. I rise to my feet, flashlight in right hand, pistol in left. Every instinct tells me this is the moment all the pieces fall into place or shatter completely. The attic floor slopes downward toward the center, where a low, arched ceiling meets rough-hewn rafters. My boots press into warped floorboards. The smell is musty, old insulation and rotting wood, but underneath it something coppery, alive. I sweep the beam left, stacks of yellowed newspapers, bits of broken toys, a battered wooden crib rail stained with what looks like old varnish and something darker. My breath catches. I take a step forward, careful to keep my weight over the joists. The beam finds more, tiny footprints pressed into the dust, leading to a wall where chalk lines form a crude circle. Inside it, words in a child's jagged scrawl, "He wants to play." My throat tightens. I drop to one knee to photograph it. Behind me, I hear Lopez's soft tread. "You see that?" I whisper. He kneels beside me, voice hushed. "Yeah, looks like Ella's writing, but the style..." I point down the narrow passage. "There's a light over here." He switches on his headlamp. We follow the chalk circle to a section of wall where a sheet of plywood has been nailed over rough framing, but the nails are fresh. Someone barricaded this space recently. I shiver. "Cover me," I tell Lopez. He falls back, weapon at the ready. I draw my sidearm tighter, press my palm against the plywood, and give it a shove. It pops inward with a groan. I push further, and a hidden door swings open. Inside is a makeshift room, no more than 8 feet by 6. The walls are lined with yellowing wallpaper peeling at the top. In one corner, a small bed frame holds a threadbare mattress, lumpy with age. On the floor, a child's doll lies face down, one button eye missing. I shine my light on a low table. Scattered crayons, a half-crumbled notebook, pages covered in drawings of stick figures. Some smiling, some with their heads scribbled out. One drawing shows a figure in uniform, labeled Hero, and another shows a figure behind bars, labeled Bad Man. My pulse races as I flip through pages. At the notebook's end, a page written in an adult hand. Protect us. He watches from the shadows. Find us before he comes back. I look up at Lopez. This is where they were hiding. He sweeps his light over the dilapidated space. We need to get this documented and get them out. Cutter Brian, set up extraction. I pull out my radio. Unit 12, attic discovery. Found a concealed room. Possible juvenile victims. Send EMS and victim services immediately. Copy that. Dispatch responds. I kneel beside the bed. The mattress sags on one side, as if someone had sat there recently. I shine beneath, muddy footprints embedded in dust, and I swallow. Small blood droplets, now faded to rust. I snap photos. Behind me, Lopez sweeps the ceiling with thermal imaging. No heat signatures, nothing alive but us. Suddenly, the attic door slams shut with enough force to rattle the rafters. My pistol comes up, light and barrel aimed at the closed hatch. My heart hammers so loud I worry they'll hear it downstairs. I call out, "Cedar Falls, PD, stay back." No answer. Just the echo of our breath in the trap-like space. I radio Lopez. "Secure the door from below. No unauthorized entry." His voice crackles. On it. I crouch, keeping the muzzle pointed upward at the hatch. After a moment, I hear the scratching of pry bars. Then a muffled voice. "Sergeant, door's jammed from your side. I'll get the crowbar." I remain still, back pressed to the far wall, scanning the tiny room. My light lands on something else. An old tape recorder perched on the table, its play button stuck down. I approach, a glove finger brushing the cold plastic. A frayed cassette inside bears no label. I hit stop and then eject. The tape falls into my palm. I stare at the brown ribbon, thinking of the voices we heard, my own, distorted, bits of children's laughter threaded through. How many times had someone sat right here, recording every call, every footstep, every scream for help? How long had this gone on? A soft whimper reaches my ears, indistinct but unmistakable. My head snaps up, scanning the shadows. "Did you hear that?" I whisper. Lopez presses against the hatch. "More rescue coming up. Don't let go of that tape." With a metallic groan, the attic door lifts and light spills in. 2 SWAT medics climb through, helmets low, bulky vests illuminated by my flashlight. One kneels beside me and shines a handheld thermal camera across the hidden room. No body heat, no breathing, but the air feels thick. I hand him the tape. Evidence. Possible victim statements, suspect's own recordings. He nods and secures it in an evidence bag. I step aside as they place an evidence marker next to the doll. I feel the weight of all we've discovered sink in. The husband, the intruder, the children's terror, and now this secret prison in the attic. Someone had been keeping a twisted vigil, either for Mrs. Dalton's family or for some other prey yet to be found. As the medics pack up, I take one last sweep. My beam crosses a small window set high in the gable, frost-rimmed and cracked. Beyond it, the darkest sky stares back, an auditorium of black. I wonder if anyone outside hears these walls whisper. I turn to leave, but my boot heels catch on something. A second trapdoor in the floorboards. I look back at Lopez. There's another one here. He shines down. The wood grain is warped, an outline nearly imperceptible in dust. I crouch and push with both hands. It shifts, but doesn't open easily. Lopez kneels beside me, and between us we pry it upward, revealing a crawl space descending into utter black. I secure my flashlight to my chest and train the beam downward. Wooden rafters, sparse insulation, and footprints etched deep in the dirt floor. No cables, no utilities, just earth and timber. I swallow. "Detective," I call through my mic. "We've got a second level." Moments later, Leibowitz's flashlight beam joins us. This is beyond anything I've seen. Are you sure you want to go down? I exhale, steadying my voice. We came this far, we can't stop now. He nods and secures his pistol. The SWAT medic retreats, signaling the other teams to stand by. I brace my hand on the attic joist and ease myself into the hole, boot first, grabbing the edge to lower myself into the void. The air here is stale, thick with the smell of damp earth. I find a handhold in a girder and descend carefully. When my boots hit the dirt, I pause. The beam from my chest lamp illuminates a corridor of packed earth. No wallpaper, no boards, just walls of soil. The footprints lead away toward a faint glow. I follow, heart pounding. I emerge into a low chamber, barely 6 feet tall, where the light comes from a single bare bulb dangling from heavy wiring. Beneath it, a tattered blanket lies on the dirt, and around it, small toys are arranged in a circle. A wooden train, a plastic duck, a chipped porcelain tea set. The scene looks like a child's altar. My pulse pounds. I sweep the beam upward, scratch marks gouged into the earth walls forming letters VERYBAD. Above them, in deeper gouges, no one comes. I swallow hard. Detective Leibowitz, you seeing this? He kneels at the edge of the chamber and shines his light. This is ritual, or someone's demented game. I move toward the toys, careful not to disturb the circle. A single piece of paper lies at the center, yellowed and curled. I pick it up with gloved fingers. It's a newspaper clipping, dated March 1974. Headline, Child Nurse Guilty in Hospital Disappearances. Beneath it, a photo of a smiling woman in uniform. A hospital nurse named Margaret Ellison, convicted of murdering 3 children in the nearby sanatorium decades ago. My breath catches. This house was built on the old sanatorium grounds. I recall local legends, buried tunnels, unmarked graves, whispers of children's screams at night. I shook it off as folklore until now. The detective steps in beside me, eyes wide. Ellison's case files. She claimed she could see the real shapes behind children, that they needed her to free them. He taps the clipping. She carved the walls with warnings and buried her victims in hidden chambers. I feel bile rise. Our modern suspect, Porter, might only be the latest to carry out twisted mimicry. But something here is older, something far darker than any 911 call. The bulb flickers. A distant drip echoes. I realize the air has grown colder, the silence deeper. I look at the circles of toys and the chalk threats above, and I understand. This isn't about Dalton or Porter. This is Ellison's legacy, still alive in these walls. I rise, voice trembling. We need structural engineers. This place might collapse if anyone goes deeper. And we need historians. City records say the sanatorium burned, but no records of any survivors or tunnels. Leibowitz nods, phone already out. I'm notifying command. This will be front-page news. I take one last look at the hidden chamber, its circle of toys and the ghost of Ellison's crimes etched in dirt. I turn to climb back, but a soft child's giggle drips through the tunnel behind me, a sound that makes my skin crawl. I freeze. The beam swings back. The corridor is empty, but the toys rattle in the circle as if brushed by tiny fingers. My jaw tightens. I whisper into my mic, "All units, hold position. We have movement down here." Behind me, the tunnel's darkness seems to pulse, alive. And in that moment, I understood the terrible truth. The house didn't just watch us. It remembered. It waited. And in its shadows, Ellison's legacy still plays its deadly game. The question that haunts me now, after every sleepless night, every replayed call, every whispered echo, is this: How many more houses in Cedar Falls hold these secrets beneath their floors? And will anyone ever escape once they step inside? I climbed out of the patrol car into the chill of a late spring night. May 12, 2024, exactly 0007 on my dashcam timestamp. Lights off, siren silent. Dispatch had flagged this as a domestic disturbance with possible children involved. My partner, Deputy James Caldwell, and I exchanged a quick nod before cutting our engines and stepping toward the house at 2418 Elmwood Drive. The street lamps cast long, skeletal shadows across manicured lawns. In Crestwood County, a squeaky clean suburb known for block parties and bake sales, this kind of call always set my nerves on edge. The front porch light was dead. Its bulb hung loose in the socket, swinging on a single wire. The door stood ajar by nearly 3 inches. "Cover me," I whispered into the mic clipped to my uniform, hand on my holstered weapon. Caldwell slid in beside me, shield up, eyes scanning the living room beyond. I nudged the door further open, no resistance, and eased inside. The entryway was a war zone. A wooden console table lay on its side, its family photos smashed to bits, frames splintered, smiling faces buried under shards of glass. A floral rug that probably cost more than my first squad car was folded back at odd angles, its fringe tangled in blood that hadn't quite dried. I knelt to inspect the smear, a shallow scrape, maybe a woman who'd tried to protect herself. My heart tightened. "Nothing on the front," Caldwell said, voice low. "2 exits, front and back." We'd seen plenty of fights spill into backyards. I keyed my radio. "Hawkins to dispatch, perimeter check requested. Units, please cover rear." No response yet. I rose, sweeping my flashlight beam along the hallway. The muted glow of a television flickered in the next room. Child's cartoon stuck on pause, pastel shapes drifting across the screen like ghosts. "Kids," I muttered. The hold-open switch on my flashlight clicked louder than I liked. I could hear faint shuffling from upstairs and, somewhere behind me, the soft whimper of a child. Caldwell and I exchanged the slightest glance. He gestured up the narrow carpeted stairs. Halfway up, I paused. Every creak sounded like a warning. I counted my steps. 1, 2. I could hear static at the edge of my radio, dispatch running hot before another call. Somewhere in that static was a dispatcher screaming for backup on a DUI. Not helpful. At the landing, I felt the house settle, like it sighed under its own weight. The second-floor hallway was lined with doors, all closed, each one a potential threat. The light from my torch carved a tunnel of visibility, but beyond its beam everything fell to black. Caldwell stayed a step behind, silhouette rigid, hand on holster. The sobbing got louder. It wasn't just any sob, it was a small child's cry. My chest tightened. Nothing shakes you like a frightened kid. I edged toward the door at the far end, the one directly across from the laundry room. Its knob was wet with something sticky. I suspected sweat, maybe blood. I turned to Caldwell. "On 3, we kick?" He nodded. 1, 2, 3. My boot met the center of the door with a thud that rattled the frame. The door gave way, splintering just enough to slip inside. I raised my weapon, sight trained on the far corner. Beneath piles of dirty laundry and plastic bags, I saw pale legs curled inward. The kid's tear-streaked face snapped up at me. "Easy now, buddy. It's Deputy Hawkins." I lowered to one knee, gun arm bent but steady. The child, about 6 years old, pajamas soaked through, cowered, hugging a battered teddy bear. His eyes were wide orbs of panic. "Where's your mom?" I asked softly. His breaths came in uneven gasps, He pointed toward the closet door, cracked open just a sliver. Beyond that gap lay darkness thicker than any midnight I'd ever worked. A slow, wet inhale echoed from within. A chilling realization hit me. Closets are small, confined spaces. Whoever, or whatever, was in there couldn't see us without turning its head. The breathing was deliberate, measured, like someone trying not to be heard. I keyed my radio. Hawkins to Caldwell. Closet, check it. My voice didn't waver, but adrenaline spiked through my veins. Caldwell stepped forward, helmet, light on, weapon drawn. I moved to the side and covered the doorway. The boy whimpered, squeezing my arm. I patted his back. Hang tight, kid, we've got you. Caldwell shone his light into the black recess. The beam trembled, sweeping past shelves cluttered with sweaters. Then it caught a flash of white. An eye? A reflection? The sound of fabric rustling. Caldwell called out, "Ma'am, drop your weapon. We're with the police." His tone was firm, but not screaming. I could see his jaw clenched. The officer knows better than to startle a possibly armed suspect in a confined space. My radio crackled. Backup ETA 5 minutes. Less than ideal, but we had to move. The kid's sobs turned into hiccups, quieting beneath my uniform. The house settled again. Pipes groaned like dying whispers. Then a sudden squeak. The closet door swung outward an inch. A hand, dirty, trembling, slipped into view, holding what looked like a kitchen knife handle. I exchanged a glance with Caldwell. No hesitation. We leveled our weapons. "Ma'am," Caldwell said, voice low but carrying, "step away from the blade." The hand withdrew. The door opened fully and I raised my voice. "Mother, it's Deputy Hawkins. Let the little boy go." A woman stood there, a shape framed by dim hallway light. Dark hair tangled, eyes red-rimmed and wild. Her nightshirt was torn, stained with patches of crimson. She held the knife against her chest, blade pointing down. The edge still gleamed wet. My stomach churned. She looked half crazed, half desperate. The kid muffled a cry. I felt the air thicken, charged. I rose up slowly, hands visible. "Sarah," I said, using the name Dispatch had gotten from the kid's frantic mother, "it's okay. We just want to keep you safe. You don't have to do this." She blinked, gaze flicking between me and the boy. Her breathing came in harsh bursts. A bead of sweat rolled down her temple. "They'll take him," she whispered, voice cracking. "If I let them, they'll take him away." My training kicked in. I kept my tone calm, steady. "We're not here to take him. He's safe. You're safe. Let's put the knife down and we can all leave this house together." For a heartbeat, she wavered. Then, like a snapped rubber band, she tightened her grip and lunged forward. I reacted instantly. My bulletproof vest saved me from a shallow cut to the stomach as the blade scraped across the nylon. Caldwell shouted, advanced, disarmed her in a practiced motion. The knife clattered to the floor. "Kid, eyes away!" Caldwell barked, and I scooped the boy into my arms. He screamed, burying his face in my chest. I felt his small body shake against me. Caldwell handcuffed Sarah behind her back. Her sobs shook the entire hallway. Deputies arrived moments later, flooding the scene with flashlights and voices. I backed out, still cradling the child as paramedics took over. The little guy stared at me with hollow eyes. I gently lowered him to Caldwell's arms. Later, in the station's child interview room, I sat opposite the boy. Luke, he'd told me, offered him juice while social workers comforted him. Every time I blinked, I saw the knife's edge, heard the rasp of Sarah's breathing. By the time I finished my report, it was nearly dawn. Back at home, I couldn't shake the images. The closet door creaking, the sheen of the blade, that single tear carving a trail through Sarah's makeup. Sleep wouldn't come. In the days that followed, I kept picturing 2418 Elmwood in the rearview mirror. Empty, broken, haunted by footsteps that belonged to no one. I wondered if Sarah would find help, if Luke would be safe with relatives, if I'd ever feel normal again, responding to a dinner plate breaking under my own fist. And I still haven't answered the question that sticks in my mind. In that dark hallway, who was the one truly trapped? I eased back into my uniform after the interview room cleared, trading off the heavy trauma-hued smell of antiseptic and kids' tears for the cold metal of the squad room desk. The precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I thumbed through scribbled notes, trying to piece together a report that hadn't felt like a simple arrest. Samantha Ward's eyes had haunted me, the moment she collapsed in tears when Luke was lifted from her arms. I pressed my palm into my temple, leaning forward until the cheap laminate bit into my forehead. It was 3:14 when I finally stepped out into the damp pre-dawn air. The sky was a slate sheet, and every street lamp haloed with moisture. I paused under the station's awning, feeling the echo of Luke's sobs in my chest. A yellow evidence tag fluttered on the clipboard I held, the kitchen knife, my name written on it. I tucked it into an evidence bin, snapping it shut. A crackle in my pocket told me dispatch had another call. Domestic disturbance, still, and it was 10 miles north near the River District. My partner Caldwell shook his head from the passenger seat when I climbed in. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded once, started the engine. "I'm fine," I said, though the words felt fragile. We rolled out with lights off again, siren muted. The streets were deserted, except for the occasional rat scuttling across the gutters. Caldwell was silent, tapping his fingers on the wheel in time with our tires. In the rearview mirror, I caught my reflection. Dark circles under bloodshot eyes, uniform collar rumpled. At 3:45 a.m., we turned onto North River Road. The river's dark surface reflected nothing. The houses here were older, clapboard exteriors, overgrown hedges. This call had been flagged as a priority 3, which meant noise complaint or argument, but dispatch warned children might be present. That always bumped it up in my mind. The caller had hung up before leaving details. Classic pattern. Screams, then silence. We parked 20 yards from the front door and approached on foot. No broken lights this time, just a faint glow from inside. Caldwell whispered through the man-trap door. "Police, you okay in there?" No answer. We opened the door quietly. It didn't even creak. Inside, the living room was tidy. No overturned furniture, just a television playing static. A pair of children's sneakers lay side by side on the rug. I switched on my flashlight. The beam caught a framed photo on the mantel, a mother and 2 kids at a carnival, smiling. Underneath, someone had scrawled "My Little Angels" on the wooden mat. "Look at that," Caldwell muttered. We swept the ground floor. No sign of adults, no struggle. We climbed stairs 2 at a time. On the landing, a crying girl, maybe 8, peered around the corner of a hallway, clutching a doll. She saw us and ran into Caldwell's arms. He knelt, spoke gently. "Hey there, sweetheart, it's Deputy Caldwell. What's your name?" She sniffled, wiping snot with the back of her hand. "Emily," she whispered. "Where's your mom?" I asked, edging closer. She pointed down the hall. "In there." The door was cracked. I glanced at Caldwell. He nodded. I shoved it open. The bedroom was dark except for a sliver of moonlight through a cracked blind. A woman stood in the center floor, her back turned. Her arms were raised, wrists bound by a scarf to the bedpost. She trembled. A man's silhouette crouched near her feet, head bowed. I holstered my flashlight, yelling, "Police! Drop your weapon!" I spun, spotting a pistol on the dresser behind me. Caldwell drew his gun, trained it on the man. Blood pounded in my ears as I assessed. The hostage, Mother, couldn't be more than 25. Hair tangled, nightdress shredded. The man turned slowly, wrenching his wrists free only when I yelled again. "Hands where I can see 'em!" He obeyed, stepping back. Caldwell cuffed him. The mother collapsed in sobs, clutching Emily's hand. I radioed backup. "Hawkins to dispatch. Suspect in custody, mother and child safe, send medical." Traffic noise crackled in response, but no laughter this time. Later that morning, I filled out more paperwork. Caldwell had left to take Emily to social services. I had to finish my narrative on Samantha Ward. The two calls looped in my mind. Ward's violent panic with Luke, and this calmer but equally harrowing River District abduction. My phone buzzed, hospital liaison. Samantha's stomach had been nicked. She'd survived, but wouldn't see Luke for weeks. The news hit me harder than I expected. I pushed back from my desk. By noon, I returned to the Elmwood house. The for sale sign was gone. Contractors had trodden through, leaving footprints in the lawn. Dust motes danced in shafts of sunlight through boarded windows. I stepped inside, helmet, light off, just my flashlight. The console table was restored, the rug cleaned, but I spotted a new crack in the hallway mirror. I stared at my reflection, eyes tired, jaw clenched. A single child's sneaker lay abandoned in a corner. Not Luke's, too small, a neighbor kid's maybe. I snapped a quick photo and pocketed it. Something about that lone sneaker felt like a sign, unresolved. I backed out, heart thudding. That afternoon, at roll call, I sat through briefings on traffic stops and parking violations with my gear still feeling like lead. Sergeant Ramirez called my name. "Hawkins, office?" He closed the door behind me. On his desk, Drew Caldwell's shift report and mine, stapled together. "You two've been busy," he said, voice low. Then he slid a folder across. This came in. Internal Affairs. 2 complaints from District Attorney's Office. My stomach sank. I opened the folder. One allegation that I'd overstepped during the Ward arrest. Another questioning Caldwell's conduct at the River House. Both incidents described as excessive force or improper protocol. Ramirez met my eyes. "You did everything by the book?" he asked. I swallowed. "Yes, sir." He leaned back. "Stories leak. Press smells blood and domestic calls more than murder scenes. You'll be interviewed tomorrow. Be ready." I left without another word, head spinning. That night, sleep eluded me. I paced my apartment, eyes fixed on the ceiling where water stains formed a crude map of my guilt. My phone buzzed again, this time Luke's foster mother checking on him. She sent a picture, Luke asleep, teddy bear clutched to his chest. Relief warmed me but sharpened the ache in my gut. At 2:15, I got an unmarked call. "Officer Hawkins, this is Special Victims. You did good work. Don't let politics blind you." No name, then click. I stared at the deadline, wondering who'd sent the warning, or the compliment. My next shift began at 7 a.m. Uniform pressed, boots shined, but I felt hollow. At roll call, dispatch buzzed, another 911, domestic disturbance with children. Elmwood Drive again. My heart lurched. Caldwell caught my eye, no question needed. We drove out in silence, lights off, siren muted, the weight of reports and IA complaints pressing down. As we turned onto Elmwood, the street looked the same, quiet, neat, oblivious. But I knew better now. Behind each front door, waiting, was a story that didn't end when cuffs clicked or headlines faded. The house loomed ahead, windows dark. I swallowed, hand brushing my holster. Here we go again. I whispered, voice nearly lost. Caldwell gripped my shoulder. You ready? I inhaled, steeling myself, and I still don't know if that final call was coincidence or some twisted echo, a reminder that in this job, the nightmares never stopped knocking. I killed the engine just past midnight, the patrol car settling into the hush of Elmwood Drive like a misplaced echo. Dispatch had flagged this as another domestic disturbance with children at 2418 Elmwood, our third call here in a month. I checked my watch. June 4th, 2024, 003. Caldwell lifted a brow as he hit the button on the overhead lights. You ready, partner? He asked, soft enough that only I heard. I clipped my mic on. Hawkins to dispatch, on scene, 2418 Elmwood Drive. No answer. Dispatch was swamped. We stepped onto the front porch. The door, which we'd boarded days ago, stood half open again, a narrow wedge of darkness beckoning. A single plank had been peeled back. No sign of forced entry. Whoever, or whatever, was inside had a key. I drew my weapon, flicked on my flashlight. The beam landed on the warped wood, then the cracked window beside the door. Through it, I saw the faint profile of the living room. A fresh set of footprints pressed into the thin layer of dust on the floorboards, leading toward the hallway. Caldwell knelt, examining them. Barefoot, size 9 or 10, he murmured. Looks like the kid. I swallowed. Luke. We crossed the threshold. The air smelled of mildew and something fouled, sickly sweet, like rotting fruit. The front room was bare now, the furniture gone, walls freshly scraped of nails and hooks. Only the flat-screen TV remained, screen black. On the floor, in the center of the dust, a single yellow rubber duck. Luke's duck. The hallway beyond was darker. No ceiling light, no moonlight. I clicked my torch higher. Shadows shimmered at the edges. Caldwell covered my 6 as we advanced. At the top of the short flight of stairs, I paused. On the wall, scrawled in what looked like red mud, were the words, "He never left." A chill slithered up my spine. I radioed in again. Hawkins to dispatch, be advised. Suspicious message inside Elmwood. Request immediate backup. Again, nothing but static. I gestured to Caldwell. He exhaled, checking his sidearm. We reached the second-floor landing. The doors were all closed, but the second one on the left was cracked open about an inch. A faint, uneven breathing sounded inside. I gripped the door frame and peered in. The room was empty. No furniture, debris everywhere. But a small pair of pajamas lay folded neatly on the mattress, and Luke's sneakers sat side by side at the foot of the bed. Then the breathing stuttered, as if someone held their breath. I motioned Caldwell up. He pressed his ear to the gap, then turned his head to me, eyes wide. "Daddy?" My heart froze. A small voice, unmistakable, came from behind us. I jerked around. Luke stood at the top of the stairs, face smudged, eyes glossy in the beam. He stepped forward, raising a single finger to his lips. "Shh," he whispered. Caldwell cursed under his breath. "How?" I scooped Luke into my arms. His body was ice cold. "Where's your mom?" I asked. But before he could answer, a door slammed somewhere below. The house shuddered. We backed down the hallway. Each step creaked like a warning. The duck in my pocket vibrated. No battery, no reason. I stopped, listening. A soft scrape came from the end of the hall, past the linen closet. Caldwell and I exchanged a look. Movement. I set Luke gently on the floor and drew my gun again. "Caldwell, cover me." He nodded, pivoting on his heel. I edged toward the noise. At the linen closet door, I paused. My flashlight revealed towels stacked neatly, but one shelf was pulled forward. Its contents spilled on the floor. Amid the chaos, I saw a blood-smudged photograph. Samantha Ward, smiling, holding Luke when he was a baby. Beneath it, scratched into the wood in the same red mud, "Stay with me." My pulse thundered. "Caldwell," I whispered. He closed the distance, light on the picture. "Duct tape," he hissed, pointing at a small coil on the shelf. I frowned. "They've been living here." A creak above us made both of us jump. I gestured at the stairs. We ascended, guns trained upward. The third door, master bedroom, stood partly open. I pressed my flashlight against the jamb. The room was lit only by the burning ember of a lone candle on the nightstand. The bed was made, perfect, but the sheets were stained. Luke darted ahead. "Mom!" His voice broke the spell. A figure emerged from a corner, Samantha Ward, her face ghost white, eyes darting. She wore Luke's sneakers and held the rubber duck in one hand. The knife was gone. "Sammy?" I said softly, lowering my gun, but she raised a shaking finger. "Don't call me that," she rasped. Her voice had warped. "I'm not her anymore." Caldwell flicked on his light, illuminating the rest of the room. Its walls were scratched raw, messages carved deep. "He took him. Don't leave." A low hum began like a distant heartbeat. Luke froze. "Mom?" he whispered. Samantha tilted her head. "He's here," she said, voice almost a purr. "He never left us." Behind her, a shape slipped from the shadow. A tall, gaunt silhouette, head twisted at an impossible angle. My throat went dry. Caldwell shouted, "Everyone back!" But in that instant, the room door slammed shut with enough force to rattle the frame. I yanked the handle. It wouldn't budge. Samantha took a step forward, raising the duck. Its button was depressed. It squeaked, a high, tinny note in the candlelit room. The figure behind her creaked closer. "Don't go," Samantha whispered, eyes glinting. "Stay with me. Stay forever." I swung my flashlight, only to catch the figure's face. Caldwell. But Caldwell was outside in the hallway. This silhouette wore his uniform, but eyes black, hollow. Its lips peeled back in a grin. "Deputy Hawkins," it crooned. "You're late." The candle flame flickered out. Darkness swallowed us. I heard Luke scream, then nothing but a rapid pounding. Was it my heart or footsteps? Then silence. The light snapped back on. Samantha Ward was gone. The figure, my doppelganger, stood in the center of the room, holding the rubber duck. Luke sat on the bed, tears on his cheeks, clutching the same toy. The door clicked open. Caldwell burst in, weapon drawn. "Hawkins? Luke?" I bolted forward, grabbing Luke. He buried his face in my chest. I spun to Caldwell. "Did you see?" He shook his head. "Buddy, what the hell happened in here?" I looked around. The walls were smooth now, no carvings, no messages. The candlestick lay shattered on the floor. The window was open, a breeze scattering papers. A piece of torn fabric fluttered at my feet. I picked it up. It was my own patrol shirt, ripped where my vest had been cut. My name patch was gone. Caldwell's radio crackled. "All units, any unit, be advised. Dispatch is receiving a call from 2418 Elmwood Drive. Call type, domestic disturbance with children. Caller says they can hear children crying, but no one answers their knock." My breath caught. I looked at Luke. His wide eyes stared back at me, terrified. Then the radio whispered again, distorted. "They never left." I glanced at Caldwell. He shook. "We locked that house," he said, voice hollow. Luke clutched the duck. "He's here," he whimpered. I swallowed, legs dragging me toward the door. "Let's go," I said. As we stepped back into the hallway, the lights flickered, revealing 3 sets of footprints in the dust. 2 matching ours, and one set leading away, barefoot. I paused. "Who are we chasing, Luke?" The boy looked up, tears brimming. "I thought it was you." And I realized I wasn't sure anymore.